Okay, guys, thanks for showing up tonight, and I'll let Steve take it away.
I'm going to share my screen. Hopefully that did it. And I'm going to do that right there and share. And then I'm going to go, oh, good.
Yay.
Hmm.
Now we got the start of a PowerPoint until you hit F5.
Where we go. I have these banner bars across the top here. And I can't start the PowerPoint.
Hit F5.
Thank you. But now I have it on the bottom. Hey, do you see my bar across the bottom there? That's
Yep.
got participants and all that sort of stuff.
Oh, no.
Okay, I see it on mine, and I didn't know if you guys saw that. So anyway, I want to talk a little bit tonight about the C-Star S50, and everybody just calls them C-Stars. And I want to talk about a graphics program that a lot of people are apparently using. It's called Cyril.
Really quick, Steve, have you got your PowerPoint running full screen?
I should have it.
What we're seeing is we're seeing the PowerPoint screen with all of the menu buttons and the side slides and all that good stuff.
Well,
we're not seeing the full screen presentation.
Let me do this. Hit OK. Oh, good. That goes away. So I'll try again.
Sorry to interrupt, but.
Oh, no, please. Can you see that way?
No, it's more or less, I think it's more how you're sharing the screen. You're sharing like your whole screen and not the PowerPoint presentation itself.
I thought I did that. Okay, well, I'll do back to new share.
Because actually in the little thumbnail, we see you with your nebula behind you.
Slideshow. Yes.
Okay. Now you probably have to Alt Tab to zoom and then do your sharing of the full screen slideshow.
Do view and reading view.
I'd try that.
I'll try which?
View.
Okay, where's view?
Up top.
Third from left.
Third from left. View.
Reading view. Where'd it go?
Slideshow. Oh.
Then that's what I did before, slideshow.
Right. Right. And that gives you a full screen slideshow, right?
Yeah, it should.
Okay.
I see full screen. Do you see full screen?
No, we're just seeing your PowerPoint screen. Now, what I'm saying is when you did a share screen, you may have picked the PowerPoint screen and not the full screen slideshow.
Okay, let's
it's
try
perfectly
this
readable.
Huh?
I couldn't read anything, Carl.
Sorry about wasting everybody's time.
No, you're good.
I've never been to a meeting with Zoom where we don't have these sorts of troubles to start.
So now when you want to share your screen, it gives you a couple of choices.
There. Come on. There. Share screen. And I want to share screen, right?
Right. And then it should give you a couple of choices. No, okay. Screw it. Keep going. Go ahead. There you go. You got it.
Finally, sorry to waste everybody's time.
No, you're good.
So anyway, I've got more going tonight than I want to spend a whole lot of time on. And so I will tell you what I've done is that I've created a tiny URL link. So if anybody ever wants to get back to this and look at this thing, you know, when you physically have one that you can turn on and deal with, you know, you can go there that way. And there are lots of hot links in here that you might want to look at too. So anyway, that's a hot link. If you've never seen it before, that right there is what a C-Star looks like. They're little bitty and they come in the cutest little case. And if you order one and you get it, you're going to say to yourself, that case is so cute. I will tell you that if you have not played with it recently, there was an update. I know on the Android side, and I think also on the iOS side, that came out last week before. And so now the updated version of the firmware is 2.95. And when I first did this presentation at the beginning of the month, I did it with the older version and everything has changed. So over the weekend, I put this brand new one together. And so this is like the current version of the software and the stuff that you're going to see. And so ultimately, if what you see here is not what you see on your C-Star, go to the App Store and do the update and you'll get this kind of thing. And then obviously everybody knows that ASEM's got 2 of these for checkout. So anyway, what's a C-Star? And you can read a lot of this stuff. It's a smart telescope and they're all the rage now. I was at Green Bank StarQuest around the 4th of July, and there were like 5 different presentations that all dealt with C-Stars. And we had big arguments out in the field if they were cool or not, or what they were going to do to astronomy. But it's what's called a smart telescope. And a smart telescope is really nothing more than a rudimentary, I'm going to call it an imaging rig, something you set up in the field and you can take pictures with. And then you deal with the pictures instead of looking through an eyepiece. Okay. To look at the pictures, you're going to connect to it with a cell phone or a tablet, and you're going to see the pictures on that screen. One of the reasons why it works so well is that it gathers so much more light than a human eye. If we're looking through a regular telescope, we're kind of looking at a shutter speed of about a 200th of a second into the eyepiece, versus with the C-Star, generally it's going to do 10-second exposures. So it's going to integrate that information for 10 seconds, and it's going to be able to see a whole lot deeper, you know, than we can see with our eye just by looking through an eyepiece. What it does is it collects that data for 10 seconds. It'll then do another one, and it'll combine the data from those 2 pictures, and then a 3rd picture and a 4th picture. And as it does that, it's going to improve the image for each and every picture that it takes. And you can continue doing that for as long as you want to do it. And so there's some people who are doing it for more than 2,400 10-second frames. And so that's like 6 or so hours or so like that to get an image. About the C-Star, down at the bottom of the screen, you can see the field of view is about 1.3 degrees by about 0.7 degrees. So it's got a fairly decent sized field of view for the larger kind of DSOs. The thing weighs, they call it 5.5 kilograms. I think that's the weight of the C-Star, the tripod, the box, and all the stuff that comes with it. And as you get it out of the box, it's got a default exposure of 10 seconds. And the gain is automatically set at 80. And gain is kind of like ISO, if you know what I mean, when I talk about that in relation to old style photography. So it's one of something that's called a smart telescope. And on the left side of the screen over here, you can see all the other different kinds of smart scopes that are currently out right now. There are some that are very expensive, and there are some that are somewhat cheap, and the C-Star falls into that kind of range. A C-Star is like down here at the bottom, and the current prices that I see are right now about $450. Other examples, this is that Smart Eye eyepiece by Pegasus Astro. This is a Dwarf 2, I think. Dwarf 2s and Dwarf 3s look alike. So I'm going to say, for where I stole that picture, I think it's a 2, okay? And you can see those guys are right here, just about the same price as the C-Star. The Dwarf 2 is discontinued by the manufacturer, but you can still probably pick some up somewhere. And they're coming out with the Dwarf 3s, but they're still, I think, making shipping, so they're not exactly easy to get. One truth about the difference between the Dwarf 2s and the Dwarf 3s, that if you've got an interest of down here on the bottom of the screen, doing panoramic work or wildlife work or anything that's not involved in astrophotography, a Dwarf 2 might be a little bit better choice for you, only because a C-Star has a very, very small field of view. Dwarf 2 actually has 2 different lenses. One of them is a wide angle lens. It gives you about a 20-degree field. And so if you're looking for a bird at the bird feeder, you can find the bird feeder a whole lot easier with the Dwarf 2 than you can with the C-Star. One other one here, if you're interested and have a lot of money, is apparently this Celestron Origin. What I understand about it is that you can swap out parts. In other words, if you don't like the camera, you can stick a different camera in it. Pretty much all the other smart scopes that I've seen, you know, they're a sealed package, and what you get is what you get. So if you like the C-Star, but you say, oh, I want a camera that gives me a bigger field of view, it's not going to happen. But with apparently that Celestron one, it does have that ability. Thanks, Bar. Thanks, Bar. I like this picture. I smile at it when I see it. If you were thinking about what Dan would do with an imaging rig, it would have all those different kind of pieces, and it would probably even have more. All things considered, getting those pieces is going to cost a lot of money, and powering them and getting them all wired together, and then getting the computer to hook it all to, and then getting the software to the computer and making everything work. That is really a daunting experience. And a lot of times we at this digital SIG kind of meeting talk about the kind of problems that we've had doing that. If you're trying to do this out in the dark, it's really, really tough, and it takes a really, really long time. I remember Tom Richards long ago would say it took him an hour and a half to get everything set up so we can image. Well, the deal is, if you do it with a C-Star, it's grab and go. It's a turnkey system. And truthfully, you can be up and working with the thing in about 5 minutes. Ultimately, everything you need, and I showed that in this picture over here in the upper right here, that's all the stuff that comes in the box. Okay. And ultimately, you can get it all for like about $450. It used to be $500, but the prices I've seen lately are $400. There are a couple of things you might want to add. Okay. You might want to get a 3D printed light shield, thing. And I don't know if you can see it here. I'm trying to wiggle one in front of the computer, one of these little guys. And if you use your C-Star at home or where they're like street lights or something like that, one of these is probably a nice kind of thing to have. They're, I'm going to say 15, 16 bucks or something like that. And they plug right over into the lens itself. One of the problems is if you get that, you don't know how to carry it. Here I have the tripod. What you can do to get this guy to all fit in the same thing, come on, there you go, is slide it into the tripod and do that, and then it'll fit in the case. So there's just a little helpful hint. You could go that route. One of the truths about a C-Star, it's got to be level. And so some people opt to get one of these little bitty leveling devices like that. The bottom screws into a tripod. The C-Star screws into the top of it. To level it, you pull up the level in the C-Star and you turn these little knobs, and it works really, really well. Those are about $35. If you plan on using it outside in the winter, in the dark, and off the grid, it might be a good idea to get an external power bank. And so, you can get a power bank, and those are a lot of times $20, $25. And then the truth is that tripod is kind of a junky kind of tripod. So if you have like a photographic tripod, you can probably use that. The only problem is with the photographic tripod, they generally have 1/4 thread sizes, and the tripod for the C-Star is a 3/8, I think it's 16 thread. And so you need an adapter, and you can buy those adapters on Amazon. You get about 10 of them for $5. What else can I think about? Yeah, it's got an internal battery, and the internal battery is charged with the USB-C cable, and one of those actually does come in the box itself. We could talk about this all night long, but the bottom line is, will everybody like one? And the answer is no. There are going to be some people who like them, and there are going to be some people that hate them. Okay. And based on the conversations and the wars that I've experienced, one of the biggies is the people who won't like them are the people who believe you have to learn the sky before you do any observation. And I can think about the guy who was set up next to me at Green Bank. He must have said that 20 times in one night, but you got to learn the sky. Well, I guess that means for his sake, I want to image M42, and it's a case where it's July, and it's like, if you don't know the sky, you won't know that M42 is not up. But if you got a Sky Atlas program, you can look it up and find that out. Well, personally, I don't think that's a biggie. Are you a technophobe or are you a technophile? Technophobes who feel uncomfortable about software, whether it be an app on a cell phone or on a tablet, they're more liable to not like it. One of my good friends at Green Bank, David Holden, is a complete technophobe. He's got a cell phone, and the only thing he does with his cell phone is play one game and make phone calls. I really have trouble believing that David would want to get a C-Star. On the other hand, his son, Jacob, is 34 years old. Jacob gets out his cell phone every 5 minutes, even at Green Bank where there's no signal. He's complete technophile, and Jacob would really, really, really like one. Do you want to be able to see more detail? This is a loaded question because the truth is everybody wants to see more. That's what aperture fever is all about. And the truth is, buying a C-Star will help you defeat that aperture fever kind of philosophy because you will be able to see dimmer objects with more detail. We think about it and we want to be imagers. We drive to Danville, you know, we go to places like Colorado, we go to West Virginia for me, and we take pictures there. The truth is light pollution is where we live. And it was something like a smart telescope, like a C-Star. You're not going to be able to do anything from a Walmart parking lot, but if you've got a reasonably dark, just backyard, you can set up in the backyard. You're going to be able to see things. You're going to be able to do a good job. I think of Jim Toolman for the next one. He a lot of times thinks that finding the object in the sky is about half the fun. He really likes finding those things. And if you're a person who likes doing that, a smart telescope is not going to exactly make you feel all warm and fuzzy. The idea of pushing buttons saying, go get there, and it's there in a minute, you know, that doesn't seem as nearly as satisfying as trying to find it. And then that last word down there is not a real word that I know of, but I couldn't think of anything else to put there. Doers might get bored waiting for the enhancement. And essentially is the idea, if you're a visual observer, you're always doing something. You're finding something in the sky, you're looking through an eyepiece, you're seeing it, you might be writing down notes, you might be logging, you might be thinking about what the next object is. But if you're an imager, a lot of times you found the object and everything is working and you're just sitting there collecting photons and there's nothing else to do. I don't have a clue how many movies Dan is watching his car from Danville, but I bet you it's a whole lot. If you're interested in seeing what people do and can accomplish it, there's a hot link down at the bottom of this page, and that will take you to the official C-Star Facebook page. What's it good for? It's good for EAA, and EAA stands for electrically assisted astronomy. And over here, it tells you what that essentially means. It's the idea of you're using a camera to collect photons. The exposures are short, 30 seconds or less. You're stacking them, but you're not doing any real additional post-processing. It's really, really good for EAA. I'm going to say it's good for beginning imaging. If you think about the imaging setup and the rig that I had back a few slides ago, that might cost $4,000, $5,000, $10,000 when you put all that together. Maybe you're not sure you want to stick that amount of money into the whole idea of imaging. So it's a case where, hey, spend $450. You're going to take some pictures. You're going to find out if you like doing it or not. You're going to be able to learn how to post-process and find out if you're going to like that kind of thing or not. And you can make that decision, and you don't have to later on say, I spent $5,000. I really don't like it. How am I going to get rid of all this stuff? It's going to be really good for outreach. And I have another slide on outreach, so I'm going to skip over that right this second. It's good for travel. Let's pretend Bill goes to Hawaii again, and Bill wants to take a telescope. It's not going to be able to fit, you know, in the airplane. He's going to have to, you know, pay a fortune, you know, for baggage and that sort of stuff. But with the C-Star, you can either take it in the box and use it as a carry-on, or you can take the unit out itself and just put it, you know, in your baggage. It's really, really small. So it's really good for travel. If you come to the time in your life where you can't lift a 100-pound optical tube, it's really, really good for downsizing. It's small. You don't need a special vehicle. Or one of the things that I did when I bought my van is I told the guy, it's a deal breaker if I can't fit my 12-inch scope into this thing. It's really good for challenged individuals, both physically and visually. Physically, because they may be sitting in a wheelchair. They may not be able to stand up and look at an eyepiece. But with the C-Star, they can stay seated. They can stay in their comfortable position where they can get around and see what's going on. And obviously, it's going to bring in a whole lot more light than something you look at through an eyepiece. A truth, we as astronomers push, and the Astronomical Union has an observing program about library scopes. The Star Blast 4.5 cost about $350 to get them set up. The Star Blast, a C-Star is only $100 more. And I will guarantee you can see hundreds more deep sky objects with the C-Star than you can with the Star Blast. And then the astronomical league observing programs can be done by imaging. I think there are about 40 of them. So it's like you can do lots and lots and lots of work with a sea star. Well, if anybody's done the astronomical league's outreach program, when you get to the highest level, you're supposed to submit an article that would be suitable in publication in something like the Refractor. And ultimately, long ago, I think in 2013 or so, I did my article on why the notion behind EAA would be good for outreach. And so these are reasons why I think a sea star would do well in outreach. And I'm going to just let you read through that list for just a few moments. And I'll point out just a couple of things. It helps if you got a big screen versus a little bitty tablet. One night, Tom Richards and I were out at Bromelsick on a Friday night open house, and I had my, at that time, what I used for the imaging for outreach kinds of stuff. And he had his, I think it was a 10-inch knob that Tom had. And we set up on the same pads, and we would both get the same objects in the eyepiece. And people would first look at his and they'd look at mine. And I can remember a number of people saying at the same time, yours has color, because you can see the color as you do this. Color can be an important kind of thing. Are we good? Go on. Okay. One of the questions people sometimes have is like, how deep, how faint an objects can you see? From the ZWO page, they're saying using 3-minute stacks, okay, with typical 10-second exposures, you're saying you can get to around magnitude 15, okay? Now, that's going to depend on the sky conditions. In other words, if I'm doing this from my front yard in Chesterfield, no, I'm not going to be able to go that deep. But any place like Bromelsick, okay, I'm guessing you're going to be able to go to at least magnitude 13.5 to 14 to be able to see the objects, okay? So that would mean if you are kind of looking at the Ring Nebula, you probably can see the central star. And if you're wondering where that article came from, there's a hot link at the bottom of the page that shows that. I want to show you a couple of pictures I took, and I don't want to go too wild and show these kinds of things, but I will tell you a couple of caveats before I get there. I've done this together, and I've done this EAA stuff for years and years and years, but I've only had my sea star since the end of March. So in a sense, I'm still a beginner. The place I've used it the most is my front yard in Chesterfield, and the picture, the map down there is it's like the clear sky kind of thingy of what it is, and you can see the arrow. It leads to where I live, and you can see that's like a red zone, so it's nothing whatever. And I'm really red-green colorblind, so please pardon any kind of funny colors you see. So here's M13 from the front of my house. There was a street light less than 30 feet away. What can I think of? The picture you see on the left is what came straight out of the sea star. I didn't do any internal sea star enhancements. And then later I'm talking about Cyril. And so you can see the picture on the right that shows you what it looks like after it comes out of Cyril. As you look at the sea star picture, it's on a tablet. It's got a touch screen. So you can do the pinch and the stretch kind of thing to make it bigger. But you don't have a whole lot of resolution because the center is not really big. One of the things that it does have is provisions to increase the brightness and increase the contrast in the color. And a lot of times people don't use those. I would recommend doing it. It's really easy to do. It only takes a minute, and you don't have anything better to do as you're gathering this stuff for like a 5-minute exposure. There's M51 taken under the same set of conditions. Okay. And again, if you consider what you would see on M51 when the moon is up at Bromelsick, you can say, hey, this is a pretty good deal. Okay. And like I said, adjusting the brightness and contrast and kinds of things, that's really pretty good idea. One of the things you might be interested in is how big of the field is it going to be? And so I said earlier, it's about 1.3 degrees by about 0.7 degrees. That's M57. M57 is a pretty small target, all things considered. And so you'll see with 1 second exposure on the left here, what it looks like, and you can barely see the ring. And then with a 25 exposures, you see this guy. But the truth is, you got to remember, you can zoom in, you can, do the stretch. I keep forgetting that word. When you can do the stretch, and it won't necessarily get that big, but it can get big enough that you're going to be able to see that. Now, people want to know, how good is it really, really? And I'm going to let you read that page, okay? Because it would be boring if I read it for you. But the bottom line is, you can spend a whole lot of money on a telescope, and a C-Star for only $450 can do almost as well. And I'm just so impressed with them. I can't tell you. It's amazing because it's so easy to use. With just a little work, it's like, oh, I've learned the menus. I see what goes on. And it's a case where, yeah, this is really, really good. So I'm going to now go to the next picture.
Dave,
Yes.
what's the aperture on that?
What's the who?
Aperture on that.
It's f5.
Go back. No, the aperture.
The aperture, yes.
F5?
F5. On a C-Star is an F5.
50
No.
millimeter.
No, you're giving the F ratio. I'm wondering about the aperture.
Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. I'm thinking photography because that's all I shoot. Yeah, it's 50 millimeters. Yeah, 50 millimeters, and the focal length is 250 millimeters.
Right. So it's basically a 7x50. It's basically a binocular, right?
Yeah.
Go back to that picture. Go back to that picture of the Ring Nebula. I do not know of any 50 millimeter telescope that can get an image like that, naked eye.
Oh, that's true.
So you want to talk about the benefits? That right there, basically the same diameter as a 7x50 binocular, and you're getting an image like that, and the one's coming up.
Well,
There you
yeah,
go.
but you're cheating in terms of the pixel size.
So yeah, I get that, but still. That's the kind of image you see on the dime store telescopes that say 255,000, magnification. You don't get that with those dime store but they show images like this.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, absolutely. I'm sorry, keep going.
And I'm saying, and please understand, those are real images that I took. So
Yes, absolutely.
okay, we're there and there. What does a C-Star do in operation? Okay, you got to turn the thing on, and once it does, it creates a hotspot. Okay, you can use the hotspot to connect your cell phone, your tablet to it, or you can put it in station mode. So when you turn it on, it connects to some other network. If you're using it in your backyard and you want to use it in your backyard all the time, I would seriously consider just always leaving it in the station mode and having to connect to your particular network. It makes things a whole lot easier. Your network is going to extend probably to your backyard. So it's the winter time and it's 20 degrees outside, and the C-Star can be outside and you could be warm and toasty inside. So think about that. It can take deep sky, solar, lunar, planetary, and scenery kind of modes. And it can do it by taking individual pictures. It can do it videos of them, or it can do time lapse. And so if you wanted to say, oh, here, we got an eclipse. Let's go take a picture of the eclipse. You can take in a picture of an eclipse, It's got built-in features. It's got a UV-IR cut filter, which is a good thing, which is a bad thing. We can talk about that later sometime if you want. And it's got a light pollution filter in there. The light pollution filter is a case where you can switch it on or switch it off. It does normally turn on for most objects, but it turns off for galaxies. And like I said, you can override that automatic kind of thing. There's a star atlas that you can get to, and in the star atlas, it's got Messier objects, IC objects, NGC objects, sharpless ones. I think I have comets there. Everybody's pictures over there. It only has like 7 comets, and it's got stars. The problem with comets is they're always changing, and so the C-Star people would have the ZWO people would have to constantly update it to make the comets good. So comets might be a bit of a problem. Ultimately, once you select something you want to do, you can say go to it, and when it does, it'll go to where it thinks it is, and then it'll take a picture, it'll plate solve the picture, and it'll center it, and it'll put your target in the middle of the picture where it's supposed to be. And if it doesn't, it'll try it again, and it'll try it again until it's right where it's supposed to be. It's got an autofocus built in, and the autofocus is pretty good. It can, if you want, override that, and you can manually change the focus if you want to do it. It tracks the objects in Alt-Az, and I'll have more to say about Alt-Az in a few moments. And then once you finally decide it's good as it's going to get, you press a button and it starts taking pictures. And the pictures are 10 seconds long, and it stacks those pictures, and it stacks those pictures, and it stacks those pictures until you personally decide, oh, that's enough, I don't want any more. It can do one of two things. It can either save just the stacked pictures, or you can tell it to save all of the pictures, including the stack. So if you were going to do, I don't know, a 10-minute exposure, it could save 10 times 6, 60 pictures of whatever the thing is, or it could just save the final result. Okay. Ultimately, you can get in there and adjust the brightness and the contrast and the saturation, and then you can save everything. And then as you save it, you have a choice. You can either view it on your tablet, cell phone, or you can actually transfer it to computer to do that and do more work on it if you want. These are the things that I think that are good. Okay. Yeah, I got to move that out of the way so I can finally read everything. It said you're going to see, an image in a scope, and it's going to be superior to what you could see in a much larger scope. I got a 12-inch, okay, and there's no question. My C-Star does a better job than my 12-inch job. The sun and the moon fill the frame. That's not necessarily true on other of the smart telescopes. If you take a 10-minute stack, it'll do a really good job for a planetary nebula or a globular cluster or an open cluster. And on the planetary nebulas, that assumes that they're not one of the stellar ones. Okay. It's really transportable. You can set it up. It's quick. It's fast. Tear down is easy. If all of a sudden the weather turns bad, you can be gone in less than 5 minutes. It's got a large list of objects. It's got the Messier catalog. It doesn't have all the NGC, and it doesn't have all the ICs in it. Okay. I mean, I figure between the two of those, that's about 10,000 things. I think it's got all the sharpless things. Okay. It does have a triplet. It comes with a solar filter. More to say about that later. Okay. And you're going to be able to see stuff that you normally can't see with what it is that you're going to look. And then the truth is, the people at ZWO are always updating it. They're always adding new features, and they're improving it. One of the good things about ZWO, and that's a company that makes it, is that not only do they make the C-Star, but they make cameras, and they make mounts, and they make autofocusers. And so they're a really dependable astronomically manufacturing kind of company. I was going to call this the bad, but then I decided it's not bad. It's just not, and it's just not so good. First comment I would make is that if you don't know it already, it's an Alt-Az mount, and Alt-Az mounts always have problems with what's called field rotation. What that means, and I don't know if you're going to be able to see my hand here, but that means that as you take the pictures, they're slowly rotating. And that means that over the course of an hour, the picture is literally going to rotate by 15 degrees. And that means it chews up the corners and it chews up the edges. And if you have exposures that are too long, it's going to blur the stuff that's in the image. That's why they settled on a 10-second exposure. Okay. Ultimately, you can do some stuff to help. And ultimately, there is a way of getting a longer exposure. But if you do those kinds of things, you're going to get rejected exposures. It's going to take a picture and say, oh, that's not good enough. It's going to throw it away. Your best chance is to do the 10-second exposure stuff. Talked a little bit about this before I got started. It's first generation. Okay. There are going to be some problems there. They are solving some of the software related things. I don't think there are any hardware problems that I've really seen. I know on the original Dwarf 2s, they had bad base plates. And if you weren't careful, you could crack the base plate and have the whole thing fall apart. I haven't heard any of those things going on the C-Stars. If you were to say, I got a C-star, I want to go read the documentation, good luck. Documentation's always lagging way far behind, months and months and months behind. And so probably the best thing to do is go to YouTube and try to find a current YouTube video. Grant asked, what's the aperture? And there's that one. One truth about that is that it is going to be poor on planet. It doesn't really have enough focal length to be able to get you the magnification to be able to see the planets. If you look at the pixel size of the image, it's going to be 1920 by 1080. It could be bigger. On a good imaging camera, it's going to be twice or 3 times as much. That means you'd be able to zoom in more and see more, but this is what you get. It's also kind of a funny shape. And I've got this one down a little bit further, but ultimately it's a vertical format, and I like to see my pictures run horizontally. That's just me. And so ultimately you're stuck with what you get. It's a proprietary system. You're going to get it. It's a sealed box. You're not going to make any changes in it. And unless the ZWO decides it wants to add a feature, the features aren't going to be there. But a perfect example would be, I want to take an image, and this time I want to take, instead of letting it go until I decide when to stop, I want to say, let's do for a 30-minute exposure. If ZWO decides that that's not important, you're not going to see it. And consider that ZWO has other things like ASI airs that do those things. You would think that maybe if they would add those features, then they might decrease their sales somewhere else. I don't know. It might be a problem. Ultimately, if you want to take scenery pictures, apparently the lens only focuses to a close focusing distance of 75 feet. And so if you want to take a picture at the bird feeder, you better have a bird feeder that's really, really far away. The tripod, and I'm trying to hold it up, the tripod is teeny, okay? If you extend the legs, I guess it might be 15 inches tall, okay? So it's gonna probably sit on the ground. The other choice would be to put it on something, and a lot of times that's gonna be like a shaky table or something. So I don't think that's a good idea. It needs both Wi-Fi and Bluetooth to connect to a tablet or a cell phone. Truth is, I tried to connect to it using an emulator BlueStacks, and you can run the software, but apparently emulators in Android don't like to do Bluetooth, so I was unable to do that. And the truth is, if you really, really, really want what I'm going to call the pretty pictures, just bite the bullet, go with a better one. Do you know about field rotation? So let me spend a minute on field rotation. Field rotation is because the Earth, we spin around, the Earth spins around in a complete circle plus a little bit every day. And so that means every hour, we're going to get a rotation of about 15 degrees. And that field rotation of 15 degrees means that ultimately things are going to blur, things are going to twist. And so a long time ago, I discovered this article by this guy, and his name's Bill, I guess, Kircher, and written on 2005. And he described the problems of field rotation and imaging with a DSLR. If anybody would like to eventually read that article, that's a hot link right there, and I really, really like it. But if you look over here, it gives you an idea in the picture. It gives you an idea of how field rotation is dependent upon where an object is. North is up here in this graph, east is over here, south is down, and west is over here. And it's kind of symmetrical on both sides. If something's in the far east or the far west, you can image for a lot longer. You can probably image for 30 seconds, with the C-star. Again, the numbers that you're going to see here in the picture, that's for a DSLR. Okay, but this is for a C-star I'm talking. But so over here and over here, you're going to be able to image a lot longer. And down in the south and in the north, you're going to be able to image, but maybe only 20 seconds. But look what happens as you get closer and closer and closer to the zenith. That time goes down more and more and more. And so by the time you try to image anywhere close to the zenith, you might only be able to image for 5 seconds or less before you get blurring. And so bottom line here is that as you use your C-star, pick the targets wisely. try to pick targets that are away from the zenith. Try to pick targets that are maybe between, maybe about 70 degrees and 30 degrees. And then you'll probably have more success. Okay, let's talk about putting it away. That's how it all fits neatly in the box. Ultimately, it can come with some other kinds of things, like a filter and that sort of stuff. So there is a little room underneath the tripod here. Two things of kind of importance. First off, this has got an angled side right here. And as you look at the cutout on the box, only one of the four corners has that angled side. That angled side on the C-Star is designed and made up with that guy. And if you do, it just drops down in your box and it's just so nice. And if you do it like me and don't pay attention and don't know about it and just take it and try to put it in and you don't put it in the right way, it'll kind of try to fit and it'll fit, but good luck getting it back out again. So do be a little bit careful about how you put that guy in, okay? And then one other thing I would tell you about is that there is a gap here, and I want to refer to that gap a little bit later on. That gap has a couple of interesting uses. Ultimately, it comes time to press it. This is one of the sides to get it going on. There's a power button. If you hold the power button, hold it down for a couple of seconds. It'll beep a couple of times. These are LED bars. They're red. They're going to light up, okay? After about 15 or 30 seconds, it'll eventually say powering on and ready connect. And you're going to see some bars here. And if there's one bar, it needs to be charged. And if there are 4 bars, it's probably good.
That's a
And-
voice notification?
Pardon?
That's a voice notification?
Yeah,
It talks to us.
it talks to you.
God damn.
It doesn't talk a lot. Oops, sorry. Gotta go
Thanks.
back.
Wow.
I hit the wrong key. Ultimately, once it's going on and you see those bars, go ahead and then start the app on your phone or your tablet, whatever that's going to be. You probably figured out, can I go previous? You probably figured out the lens is down here when it's put away. Okay, so there's not a lot of clearance between the base unit and the optical part right here. There's some third-party lens caps that you can buy. There's no problem with them. There's some third-party filter holders. There's no problem with them. But if you were to get a dew shield, be careful. Remove the dew shield before you try to put the thing away. I know that sounds like a dumb statement, but let me show you what I'm talking about. When you want to turn the thing off, you press, there are 2 ways to do it. The easiest way to do it is just hold down the power button. But when you hold the power button down and it starts to turn off, that lens unit automatically starts to rotate towards the base. And if you don't take the dew shield off, it will run into the base and it will knock it off. So be a little careful about that. A couple of things mentioned, something to the effect of a reset button. The reset button is down here on the base itself. And you can see it once it's there. And there's a charging port right over there. Okay, I want to show you a couple of things about the app. And if anybody's got any questions, I'll be glad to answer them. But I don't want to kill you because we could get bogged down with that. I put all the stuff about the app in there just in case you wanted to download this guy and look at it later and work your way through. Okay, so let's see what I'm going to say. It's on the App Store. Search for C-Star. It'll be easy to do it. Ultimately, the brains, the whole idea of the stuff, it's in the unit itself, and the app sits on the cell phone, and it just communicates with it. And can I see anything? Yeah, don't worry if you lose the connection because it's still running. Okay, so once it starts running, you get something that looks like that. And the thing that you're going to want to do is you're going to want to press connect, which makes a whole lot of sense. Ultimately, if you want to know more about it and how stuff goes, there's a little button right there that says tutorial, and there are 19 different tutorials how to do all sorts of stuff. And one of the things you're going to want to do is mess with the Sky Atlas, and the Sky Atlas is like right there. And then ultimately, if you're anywhere else, if you can see a little star looking thing down here in this corner, press that back and you'll get to this screen. Okay. Ultimately, same screen. There are these different modes, and you can press stargazing or solar system or scenery.
Keyboard.
Sorry, Grant?
Oh, sorry. I got my cat was getting on the keyboard.
No problem. I thought you had a question.
I
Okay.
didn't realize it.
down here, it's got the current kind of conditions for that evening. If you have connected without the internet, that may be blank. And you not see anything there. So you may need to connect to the internet. And to connect to the internet, essentially, you're going to have to switch back and forth between internet and the C-Star if you've got it on a hotspot. There is a button that you see a whole lot of places, and that's My Albums, and that's the stuff that's going to be saved on the C-Star itself. It will be interesting for ASEMs too, to click that button and see how many people have taken how many pictures of how many different kind of things. I think that's going to be kind of funny. And there's some future events down here. If you press the connect button, and I need to get this thing out of the way, there you go. It's the very, very first time you do it. It's going to ask you to set up your C-Star. And as part of that, you need to press the reset button that's down on the bottom. Ultimately, you're going to have to connect the Wi-Fi, and you're going to have to do that via how your particular device works. How it works on an Android, I suspect is going to be different. How that's going to work on like an iPhone or something like that. One of the truths is when you press connect, it will pop up a screen and a little window here, and it will say connect to your SIG card. Choose the one to connect to, and you'll notice there's just one right there. Okay, that's because when I did this, I was sitting in my house, and that's the only one. But if you're at Bramblesick Park on a Friday night in their lots, there might be 6 or 7 or 8 C-Stars that are all listed down there, and you want to connect to the one that's yours, and that's the only one you're going to want to control. So the truth is, you might want to rename yours. I renamed mine by putting an SB right there, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. Or another way to do it is to write yours down on a piece of paper, and then with Scotch tape or something that's clear, tape that to your C-Star unit so you know what the name of it's going to be. Once you get connected, okay, it's going to list right here and tell you what it is. And to prove that, I want to go back previous for just a second, and back previous just a second. See, there's nothing right there, but once you connect, it says connected. The next thing you're going to want to do is press the open arm button, okay? And the open arm button will take the lens part and it will rotate it up. Don't force it up. Use that button instead. And then once the thing's open, you can press the close arm. That thing will change to close and it'll close it, okay? Ultimately, when you have this guy up here, if you click on the name of yours, it'll take you to the configuration screens. And if you wanted to stargaze, and that's what it means by looking for DSOs, you'd press that, or the solar system, or whatever. And I think anything else there, nope. So let's go to the next one. We're going to pretend we're going to look at configurations for just a second. Okay, this is the main configuration screen, and on it, you might want to mess with the Wi-Fi. The Wi-Fi is where you would rename yours or do it in station mode. There are times where you're going to want to turn on the dew heater, so you would slide that switch. There's a watermark feature that will sometimes, no, that will always right at the bottom of the screen what the name of the object is, and how many images, you know, what the exposure time was. Jim Toolman puts the watermark on his. If you like the watermark, there's where you turn it on, or that's where you can turn it off. I want to show you advanced features for just a second. And down on the bottom is a little slider switch that says turn it off. But you can remember also can touch the button that's on the front of it. Can I think of anything else for that guy? No. We're going to look at some of the other screens. For Wi-Fi config, if you want to change the name, just click here and then type what you want it to do. If you want to change the password so nobody else can get in, you would click there and type that in. The default passwords, the really tricky number to realize, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. If you do change the name, okay, you will have to restart your C-Star and it will let you find it out again. In station mode, if you're interested in doing that, you would click on that. It will turn on. It'll want to know what the name of the network you're connected to is and what the password's going to be. Oh, I forgot to mention, that'll work. See that little thing right there up in the corner? If you press that, it'll take you back to where you just came from. Anything here? Yes. In this case, if you wanted to change from 10 seconds to 20 or 30, you would do that. This one's kind of interesting. It's called Save Each Frame. As it comes default, it will only stack the images and will only save the final stacked image. But if you want to save each and every frame that it takes, if you slide this slider over, oops, I lost it, that slider over, you will save however many it's supposed to be. The advantage of doing that is that C-Star will try to stack things that even have airplane tracks and stuff like that. If instead you want to make sure it doesn't do that, you can turn that on, save them all, go back through them, delete the ones you don't want as part of the stack, and then really stack it again. You can also use it to stack it in something else like Cyril or Deep Sky Stacker or something like that. You will want to adjust the level. I'm going to show you how to do that in just a second. And sometimes they're going to ask you how to calibrate the compass. I'll show you how to do that in a second. And then that's all I want to talk about there. If you were to click that adjust the level thing, it'll show you a little screen like I have over here on the right, where it's got these two little brown blotches kind of overlapping thing and a number. Okay. What you end up doing with our original configuration is to lengthen and shorten the legs such you get this as close to 0 as you can get it. Usually less than 0.3 is good. If that frustrates you and drives you crazy, you can get one of these kind of leveler kind of things. And with that, it's a whole lot easier. There you just kind of twist those things. Another thing sometimes we'll ask you to do is to calibrate the compass. And there's a little video when you see this and click on that. What it shows you is the guy grabbing those two legs and literally turning it and then turning it and then turning it. And I think you turn that in a circle for about a minute or something like that. And ultimately after that, it should do a reasonably good job. One of the reasons why you need to calibrate it would be if you want to try to do the moon, particularly if you want to do the moon in the daytime, it needs to know where north is. And ultimately, if it doesn't do a good job of knowing where north is, it's going to go to where it thinks the moon is, but then it's going to be off. Oh, bad evil thing. Ultimately, if you're looking for targets, you want to go to the Sky Atlas. And the Sky Atlas works pretty well. Okay. Ultimately, as you get to a lot of screens, there's going to be like right down here where you see the more, there's going to be a little thing that sometimes looks like the dipper. That will also get you to the Sky Atlas. In the Sky Atlas, you will see pictures like this. If you zoom in, you'll see a picture like that. And you can take your finger and you can scroll and you can zoom all over the sky. And if you type one of the things with the name, you should see that name pop up. And like down here on this first picture, it says unknown, versus on this one over here, it says Pelican Nebula. This is the case where I clicked on the Pelican Nebula. And it's a good idea to know the object because it will save the images you are taking and it wants to name them by whatever that is. So here it would say unknown, blah, 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 blah. And here it would say Pelican Nebula, which is probably a pretty good idea. Again, that returns to the main menu. And ultimately, another way of getting objects is to click on that little object button right there. In the object button right here, you got two ways you can find it. If you know what you're looking for, you can just type it in that little searchy kind of thing. So M42, it would take you and find M42. On the other hand, if you wanted to say, I know it's a galaxy, but I'm not sure which one, if you click on that, you can scroll through a list. And obviously that would take you to the moon. One of the original complaints on the Android version was that there was no way of being able to enter the coordinates. This latest release now lets you enter the RA and the deck for the object you want. And you do that underneath my favorites. And you click on the more here. And I'll show you how to do that in just a second. Like I said, comets are a little tough. They're hard to find. And to find the comets on this screen, you literally need to scroll over further past Jupiter. And you'll come up to a place where you can say comets and click on it. And you can see the list there. If you would click on any kind of object, this is what the screen will end up looking like. It'll say the name of the object, and it'll tell you a little bit about it, and it'll tell you if you can see it or not. If you can see it, it'll tell you where it is in the sky, how high up it is. And if you decide that's what you want to see, that's what you want to do, click on this guy over here, and it will start to do a go-to on it. Okay. Truth is, this will be okay for 100 objects, 110 objects in the Messier list, but there are a whole lot more NGCs in there. So you might want to just go back and actually use the search feature for that. Once you click on it, you get to this screen. It'll tell you a little bit more. Apparently, I clicked on M8 for that time. And ultimately, if it's the first object that you're looking at that night, once you say locate target position and click on that, it'll take a couple of minutes to do some housekeeping. And what that housekeeping does is it takes a picture, it moves a little bit, takes a picture, moves a little bit, takes a picture, moves a little bit, plate solves all of them and finds out where it is exactly pointed in the sky. And that's for future plate solving. And then it goes and it takes a number of images with, I'm guessing, a piece of metal or plastic over the sensor. And what it's doing is it's making images and it's going to make a master dark image for that. And the master dark image is applied to all of the pictures that you're going to see. And doing that really, really helps the way that the image is going to look. C-Star calls that part of enhancing. If it's the second image that you've already done or something later on than that, it won't do that unless you power it off and turn it back on again. If you've already done that, what it will do after it finishes with this part is it will do the go-to. It'll center it, hopefully. It will hopefully, sorry, wrong word. It'll center it, then it'll take a picture, it'll plate solve it, and it'll keep going till it's centered. This is what a typical stargazing thing is. If you're into DSOs, most of your time is going to be spent looking at something like that. The only difference is there's going to be a DSO or something like that that's going to be over here in the middle. Obviously, that gets you back. Here's the name of the target itself. When you're showing it to other people, you may not want all that stuff to be on the screen. So if you click that guy right there, pretty much all of the text is going to go away. This is a good thing. If you're up here at the top, you can see those three little buttons. If you click those, it'll bring up a sub menu, or you can turn on a manual focusing mode. If manual focusing mode is on, you're going to see a scale like right over here. If it's off, it's going to look just like that. If you're up in a place in station mode and people can get onto your network, there's a way of sharing, and you can share from that screen if people want to go and have the images that you're seeing there. And then there's a tutorial about how to do that. Little button in the menu here is a slew button. So if you're not exactly happy with the way it's all aligned here, you can kind of drag it and slew it to get it to where you want it to be. This is important. This is one that I think is really, really big. This is where you click this button, it'll bring up a menu, and that's where you're going to do the adjustment of the brightness and the contrast and the saturation. Once the image is formed here just a little bit, if you click on this button, it'll label any DSOs it sees in the image. If you click the autofocus thing, it'll autofocus. And then this guy here will take you back to the sky. Anything else? Nope. Okay, I think the next thing I got is the manual focus kind of thing. Okay. If you click on that button, you'll click three dots. You're going to see a little kind of thing like that. And if you slide this slider over here that says manual focus over to on, you see these numbers right here. And now for the adjustments, okay? I think this is biggie. This is the first step to really, really help you. If you press if you press it on the prior slide, you're going to get this kind of here, and it's going to bring up brightness, contrast, and saturation. Clicking on any of the three will bring up a slider like this. At the top, there's an A, and the A means automatic or auto, okay? And so if the brightness right now this is brightness would be on auto, and then you could slide this up and down. You could make it a whole lot brighter or a whole lot dimmer. Ditto for contrast and for saturation. In practice, probably the best way to do it is this paragraph right here. And the idea is start your image, go ahead and click on it, and take about a minute's worth of exposures. That'd be like 6 images all stacked. And then go to this screen and then make the brightness so it looks better on the screen. A lot of times the things are going to look too dark, and brightness is going to help. Then deal with the contrast. Click on the contrast thing, particularly if you're doing it in light polluted areas. Playing with the contrast is really going to help by making the background sky darker, and making the background sky darker will really make your image pop out. Ultimately, it's got 3 filters. It's got a dark filter that automatically does it when you take the darks. It's got the solar filter, okay? And I have some words for that a little bit later on. And it's got a duo band filter. And this is what the band pass on it is. It's got 2 large peaks. And truthfully, you can get a 3D printed holder for 2-inch things, and you can use any kind of filter that you would want. This is why I kind of think that it's a good idea to be able to play with the contrast and the brightness. Here's a picture that I took around Seder, which is in Cygnus. It's the cross in Cygnus. It's like right in the middle of the stars cross. And there's the data and all that sort of stuff. This is how it came out of the sea star, okay? And then I went to the contrast part and I played around and I increased the brightness and I increased the saturation. And I think you can see that this picture on the right is a whole lot more dramatic than the picture on the left. And like I said, it took me about a minute to figure out this is the way that I liked it. And I could have made it even more so. So I think for the amount of time invested, this really, really, really helps. And then you can save the picture so it looks like that. Now, let's pretend you want to image T Corona Borealis, okay? Ultimately, it's not in the database anymore. So what you end up doing is you navigate to the objects part, and this is the objects, and then you click on the more. And when you click on the more, it'll take you to this guy, and it says customize. And once you customize, you'll get the custom object menu, and there's where you type in the name of the thing, TCRB, and then you click on this, and then you click on that, and when you do, you get this kind of thing. And this is where you enter the name by just plain old typing. And this is where you enter the RA and the deck by scrolling. If you click on RA, it'll do RA, and you move these guys up and down, you get the right thing. And then when you want to do the deck, you do, and you'd scroll up and down, scroll on down. And then when you decide you like it that way, you hit the add button. And once you hit the add button, that stuff goes, and it's now a custom object, and you can always get back to that particular thing. Might be a bit of a problem with asteroids and comets because they move through the sky. You would have to go back and adjust those every night to see what you want to do. So here's some recommendations I have. Keep away from the zenith, make it level, keep it on something that's sturdy. A good tripod is a good idea. Shaky table isn't. I think a good example is I wouldn't use it on one of those metal picnic tables at Rommelsick, because people are always sitting up and standing and, you know, and bouncing the thing around. If you put it on concrete, try not to stomp and try to discourage kids from running around, particularly if it's on that little bitty tripod. I'd be afraid they'd kick it. And I would wonder, is it better to put it on grass? It might be a better idea, because grass, I think, probably is going to absorb it a little bit better. Refocus sometimes during the night, particularly if the temperature's changing a lot. Use the dew heater. It's there for a reason. It will shorten the exposure. For open clusters, globular clusters, maybe 5 minutes. Planetary nebula, 10 minutes. Galaxies, more than 15. Okay. And truthfully, don't try to do comets or asteroids only by using the sea star. Ultimately, if you try to do comets or asteroids, they're going to smear, and they're going to smear more and more as you do longer and longer exposures. If you want to do comets and asteroids, what you should probably do is save the sub exposures and then offload them onto a computer and then use Deep Sky Stacker. Deep Sky Stacker has a comet stacking feature that you can work through, and it will do a good job of freezing the stars and freezing the comets and making them look small. Do we have anything on the bottom? 10. Yeah, and use adjustments. First, yes.
Steve, I did have a question. How do you find celestial west and north when you take a photograph?
Oh, well, on this, well, let's put it this way. You can do it quite easily, and when we do the serial part, I can show you how to do it on serial, because it's really easy to do. On serial, you
Okay.
just push a button. ultimately here, it's not quite so easy. You can kind of do it, but you have to go into, the Sky Atlas. And in the Sky Atlas, you turn on the grid. And then when you get the grid on, it'll have the grid lines and show an RA index. Okay.
Okay.
So you have to
Alright.
look at there and then you have to go look at the picture. But it's easier to do when you talk about, like I said, in serial, just because if it's open in serial and it's been plate stopped in serial, you click the button and it just shows you.
Okay, because I know some of the AL programs require identification of celestial west and north.
Yeah.
So I guess yeah, okay. So we don't really care if the image is inverted and rotated and flipped and twisted or whatever. It's going to take an image and then you go back and superimpose a grid on it, and it's going to tell you which way is which.
Yeah.
Okay.
The
Steve?
easiest way to find this is to really place up. Yeah.
Question? Does that have an image erector corrector on it? Because when you take a picture of the moon or the sunspots are just like what spaceweather.com shows you, and the moon is correct in its orientation.
Yeah, I suspect because it's alt as, it's going to do everything just the right way. It's not going to flip anything in any kind of strange direction.
Well,
That's
then
what we're talking about, right?
then you can use that for north, for which way, for.
Well, no,
directions.
because it's alt as. Because it's an alt as
Right.
mount. North
Yeah,
and
I know,
not
but
south.
if you compare it to a sky atlas,
Yes,
to a real star atlas.
yeah, I would agree to that. I think we're
Okay.
okay. Okay, we're okay. The other thing you might want to be able to do is you might want to be able to do some stuff with the solar system. And by solar system, sun, moon, planets, and that kind of stuff. Comets are not under solar system. Comets are only available through that one place that's called Sky Atlas. Ultimately, planets aren't going to be so good. They're going to be pretty tiny, and lunar, really, really good lunar detail is going to be poor just because of such a short focal length. When you start talking about doing these guys for solar system kinds of stuff, you can offer 1, 2, and 4x digital zoom, but digital zoom isn't like real zoom. It's just kind of like making the pixels bigger. So you think, it's being better. It's not. And ultimately on any of them, you can capture single images, you can do a video, and you can do time lapse. And so ultimately, I'm going to click on solar system or not. This is what the solar system typical thing would be. You would pick it up and you would say, let's go to the sun. A couple of words of wisdom that a number of people have already noticed. One is that a sea star can get really, really hot. It's a black box, and a black box in the sun is not a good thing. And so somehow either reflectix or white paper or a towel or cut a hole in a piece of cardboard and put it over the top, or wrapping stuff in aluminum foil, will keep the temperature down. And I suspect that will first make the sea star last a whole lot longer, and it'll probably make your images better. Jim Tolman, JT, it says it's worth upgrading the Bader solar film. If you got the solar film, the Bader solar film will make your images, I'm going to use the expression, kind of grayish, versus the one that the filter that comes with the sea star, which is kind of like that color right there. But the Bader film makes a sharper image. Sometimes in the past, the auto find doesn't work so well, particularly on the moon. So if you have trouble auto finding the sun, there's the gap like right here. And what you can do, I'm looking at the picture here. I didn't mention that. What you can do is you can use the joystick feature, and you can move it around until the gap aligns with the sun. And so a dagger, if you will, of the sun will go through that gap, and you get the biggest dagger you can down on the ground, and you know you're going to be aligned for the sun for azimuth. And then you can raise it and lower it until the little tab that's on the filter, and I think you can just barely see the tab that's over there, that aligns in the right way, and it casts a shadow down the side. You'll be really, really close to the sun. You might be able to put a laser pointer between the unit and the optical part right here. in there, and that might help you get to the moon a little bit easier too. Typical capture screen for the sun, moon, planets, and that kind of stuff. Again, to go back, again, the name, and we make it disappear and all the text and that sort of stuff. Here's where you pick the level of digital zoom, whether you want time lapse or a picture or a video. Obviously, you can go to the album. And then these features over here, keep the sun centered. Once you're on the sun, it's a good idea. Click that guy just to make sure it tracks it. The raw mode only works for video. So if you're taking individual pictures, that's going to be grayed out. You're not going to be able to use it. Sometimes what will happen is, particularly on the higher levels of digital zoom, the picture looks a little too dim, not bright enough. So if you click on the auto manual exposure button right here, you can make it brighter. And then again, the autofocus button. There's a picture I took of the sun, and you can see kind of what it does. And that's the color of the filter. If you want to do a time-lapse video, you click on time-lapse, okay? And it'll bring up a little screen and says, take a picture every 1 second, 2 seconds, 5 seconds, 10 seconds, 20 seconds, 30 seconds. I think it goes up to a minute, okay? But that would get you a really good time lapse. Realize when it plays that back, it's going to play it back at, 30 frames per second. So ultimately, if you're taking 1 frame every 30 seconds and you only do for 5 minutes, you're not going to see a whole lot. JT took these pictures, okay, and I think he posted them on St. Louis Astro for everybody to see, but I brought them up here just because they're good and they're wonderful and that sort of stuff. And it shows you how good you can do with the sun. These are the digital zoom levels, 1x, 2x, and 4x. This is the native kind of exposure you're going to get. And what I did was I took in his image with the graphics program, I pulled out just the sunspot itself. And so this is the detail that you see in there. And I'm just really, really impressed with this. Again, he used Bader film for it. But for the people who want to do the Sunspotter program, I think this is just wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. It's easy, just incredibly easy. It's past easy. I can tell you that Dan borrowed my Herschel wedge to go and work on this kind of stuff. And he's got to haul stuff out and set stuff up and get stuff connected and all that kind of stuff. And it takes, I don't want to say it takes forever, but I think he said it was taking like a half an hour to take a picture and get torn down again. When it starts, it's like, oh, it's okay, we're done. It's great. And it's just whatever.
So low.
Yeah.
And remember me saying again that adjust the brightness kind of thing. You'll notice when JT did it, he's not here to defend himself. He's on a cruise. I guess it's worth it. But anyway, you'll see this one's a little compared to the original one. This is a little dimmer, darker, and this is a little darker. You could go in and adjust the brightness, and you can make it bright. I missed that.
Oh, somebody didn't realize they had their mic on, and
Okay, I was going to try to answer the question. So I'm just really impressed with the solar feature.
well, I have a question about that.
Sure.
So, Larry Latourette over at the SLAS picnic had one of these things set up, and we were talking about it, and he said he could not, the thing would not stack solar or lunar images. It's a one-shot deal.
Well, I have heard people, and I have seen people say, oh, we're stacking, but I don't know exactly what that means. And so if it were me and I were doing this, I would use the video feature, okay? And I'd shoot a minute of video, okay? And it's going to save it as an MP3. Then I would get that file off the C-Star and I put it on my computer. And then I would probably have to run it through PIPP,
Right.
Grant, and then get it to something that I can open with AutoStack it and run it through AutoStacker.
Well, what I meant was, I mean, when in real time, when you're looking at like the Ring Nebula and you're imaging that's stacking a multiple set of
Yes.
images, right?
Yes.
And will it do that for the solar image like these?
I don't know. I have not seen that as a feature, and I have not played with it as a feature. It may be
Okay.
there. I just don't know that it's there.
Yeah, I was just trying to confirm that because Larry, sometimes Larry is a little bit, not so much tech and not, and maybe it was just a setting for solar that you don't see, and he didn't
Yeah.
have to set for that. Okay.
And-
So So Grant, one thing he might have been referring to is with the ASI Air, there is a planetary stacking feature that's ready to go, and he may have been looking for that in the C Star, and it's probably not there.
I don't even think Larry knows what the hell that is. You know, Larry is the, you know, is a good typical example of somebody that doesn't do a lot of visual or imaging, right? He really doesn't do any of that. Ask him what the galactic center is, and he won't. Anyway, so the thing was, he had gotten some excellent nebula images, and he knew what stacking was, and he said these were stacked. And then as I was looking at his images of the sun, they were not this sharp. They were a little bit blurry. And I asked him if that was stacked, and he says, no, you can't do that.
Yeah, but see, these images that you're looking at right here are single shot images that JT took.
Those are single shots.
Single shot images. Now, the difference between what you may have seen with Larry and these is this is Bader film.
That's exactly right.
Bingo, you know, and
Right. Larry had the I call it the Thousand Oaks orange.
yeah.
And so, but that's a really big difference between the image that Larry was showing me and these on Bader. Yeah, I know I get better. I get higher detail with the Bader, but the Thousand Oaks is pretty close behind it. And
Yeah,
what I was seeing with Larry's was really far away. So,
and like I said, you can see some sunspots here,
yeah.
but the Bader's better. One last thing before I go to the next slide, I will leave you. You have the same level of resolution here in all three of these images.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Because it's digital zoom.
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, and remember before I said not labeling images. I can't remember the name. I can't remember. Back in configuration. Okay. You'll notice when JT does stuff, you see that on the bottom of his C-Star S50 and Sun, and I think below it will say what the exposure is if you do it the S.
Okay.
That can be turned on and turned off in the configuration screens. Okay. If some people like that because it tells them what the object is, and other people don't like it because they think it distracts from the picture.
Yeah.
Okay. Here's what the moon looks like. If you do that, the first one is a daytime moon picture that somebody took. Oh, I didn't take any of these pictures. Okay. This is what the moon looks like in daytime. Do be warned, if you do lunar stuff in the daytime, it's gonna be blue because the sky is blue. Ultimately, there are ways around it, but I don't know how well they're gonna work on a C-Star. I know that if you shoot the moon through a red filter, or if you shoot the moon through an infrared filter, it cleans up the blue is gone. But the other truth is the C-Star does have a UV IR filter. So if you put an IR pass filter, whatever, it might screw it up. Anyway, leave that alone. Ultimately, the 2X, I think, is a really nice job. Again, digital zooms for all three of these guys. And that guy does show a nice size of the moon where you can kind of see the nice features. And then the 4X gets in so well that you can see the lunar X and the lunar V. And that's okay-ish kind of stuff for astronomical league observing programs. If they say label a crater, you can label these craters. They're you know, you can see them. So that would work too. The truth is the moon is not the easiest thing to find. Okay, when you deal with the C-Star, apparently I have not tried it. Ultimately, if you're doing it at night, do a go to something else first and have a plate solve on something else. So then tell it to go to the moon, and then it's got a place where it knows where it's starting. So it has a better idea to be able to find it when it finishes. Depending upon what you do and how you set up the C-Star and how ASEM C-Star is set up when you get it, it can save the images one or two different ways. Okay. If you don't do anything, I will guarantee you the stacked image will be on your cell phone or on your tablet, whatever you choose to do. It will be in a directory there. You can see that if you go to the My Album option. Okay. If in configuration you say save individual frames, it will also save those on the 65 gigabyte internal storage that it has. Okay. And to see that, again, go to my album. And in that case, you got to drill down a little bit further, but you will find folders that are called subs, and the subs are where all the sub-exposures are for those kinds of things. Now, the truth is, they're not going to do a whole lot of people any good if they just stay on the C-Star itself, other than eat up that memory. So what you can do is connect your C-Star to your computer, okay? And you do that with a USB-C cable. And when you plug it into a Windows machine, see right there, C-Star Drive D. And if you double click on that guy or whatever, it'll open it up and you can copy all that stuff to your desktop or wherever you want to copy it on your computer. I would imagine that 65 gigabytes, if you don't save the individual frames, that's gonna have thousands and thousands and thousands of images. Each final image is, I think, about 2 meg in size. And so you figure how many times is 2 meg going to 65 gigabytes, that many images. If on the other hand, you start saving everything, then sooner or later it's going to get full. If it's going to get full, I do not think a C-Star will tell you that it's full. I just think it fails to stack it. And so periodically on the ASEM ones, you probably are going to want to do something to check and to clean it up. Okay.
Have you tried to see how much memory is used by image? Like, you got 50 frames stacked and that used a gig, or have you looked at any of those kind of numbers, or do you know anything about that?
Am I still shared?
No. Yeah, you're shared, but we're looking at your screen. Yeah, cool.
A saved fits for any one of the images is 4
4 meg, yeah.
meg. And let me sort on which column. Sort. And the JPEGs are 700. Okay. These are the smaller ones. Those are
Gotcha. How many
Everyone
files?
probably,
How many
everyone probably
files?
knows this. Fits format.
I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Bill.
Well, I'm sorry. Everyone probably already knows this, but the FITS format is lossless compared to JPEG. And also the
Yes.
FITS format will keep, I'll bet all the metadata is there too, like the focal length, the exposure time, the location, and where it's pointed in the sky. It's a really nice format.
Can you go back to one of those directories?
And these are the stack things. They come straight out of C-Star.
Hey, Steve, can you go back to that directory?
Yeah.
Notepad.
Oh, let's do this great one. M40.
Yeah, okay. So yeah, go back to the details on that.
View details.
10 won't work. Okay, so per fits, if you sort those by date and time. Oh no, yeah. No. I'm trying, what I'm trying to do is find out how many files you have per shot, because you got like a fits, a JPEG small, and a JPEG large. So you got what, 3 files per stackable image, right?
Yes.
Okay, and then how many total files are in there?
In a folder?
Yeah. There should be something
In Windows, the maximum is 2040.
2040 images in this one directory?
Oh, no. In this directory, I don't know how many. 57, I guess.
Bottom left, yeah, it looks like it's 57, and then total size is 3.95. Oh man, yeah, 3.95 meg. Okay.
So
So
it's
YouTube won't work if I'm in Zoom.
Pardon? Steve, so how much memory size do you have on the C-Star for this?
65 gigabytes.
Yeah, you won't run out of memory in one night.
No.
Right. Okay. That's all I was trying to get to, is how much imaging can you do in a night and not have to worry about running out of memory. And it looks like you could image all night long and not run out of memory. Good. Now, stacking is a fixed number, or can you control how many images it takes for stacking?
No. C-Star is just going to stack everybody. You have no choice.
Well, so it's going to be fixed at like 57 images?
Well, I mean, it's gonna, on those, it would stack the FITS files.
What I'm saying is how many images does it take per stack? Or can you say I want to take 40 images for stacking and then it will do that? Or
Yeah, you know, what happens is you say start,
right, okay,
and then you tell it stop when you're bored.
okay. So that's the variability you get is when you taste it between start
Yeah.
and stop.
Now, truthfully, it won't stack all the images because some of them will fail for
Ah,
one reason or
good point.
it
Okay.
doesn't see enough stars, cloud comes by, the cat stomps too hard on your sidewalk, you know.
Yeah, I rather suspect that face group or the user group, you can get into more details about like on a good dark night, good recommendation for number, for time to expose kind of thing. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not here, sorry.
I have two more and then we're done with C-Star. I have some thoughts if people want to look and think about how this is going to work as part of Bromelsick and Friday night open houses and kind of stuff. I've already said that they can create a hotspot or you can put them in station mode. Okay. If they're in station mode, they can cast. And I would think that might be a good thing to do as part of Friday night open houses. Okay. I'd suggest you put it in station mode and connect it to a wireless travel router or something like that. And it would be nice if that nice travel router would have internet access. Okay. Then I'd go get something like a Chromecast or a Roku stick, and I'd stick it into the TV that's in the C14 observatory. It's a, I don't know, 36-inch diagonal or something like that, a good sized TV. I don't think it's a new TV that has cast built into it. If it has cast built into it, you don't need the Chromecast or the Roku stick. Okay. Put everybody on the same network. Okay. And then you can cast whatever you see on your phone or your tablet onto that TV. And so everybody would see it like in 36-inch size. I think that would be a good thing. A truth is it has internet access. And so you should be able to share it and people could then be able to get the pictures that you actually see on the screen. One thing about it, and I haven't mentioned, is that there is a feature for solar and for lunar that if everybody is been on the same network in station mode, people can go to an IP address and they can see the solar stuff and they can see the lunar stuff. It does not work for the deep sky options. Okay. And then you need to worry about battery charge. Here you go. I like this next picture. Does anybody know of Kuvi? Anybody Kuvi?
Nope.
Okay, he's a crazy YouTube guy, and he lives in Tokyo, and he does DSOs from his balcony or his rooftop in Tokyo. It is possible to take a C-Star and to put it in equatorial mode. And so these are hot links over here if you want to go see them and that sort of stuff. But Kuvi will do that, and he shows you how to use it. And the advantage is if you're in equatorial mode, you can go with the 30-second exposure because you don't have to worry about field rotation. Okay. And it won't fail or anything like that. There's some downsides, but you can watch this video. Some people are always consummate fiddlers. And if you're a consummate fiddler, you might want to be interested to know what's inside one. Some guy on YouTube tore one apart and he says, look, this is all the stuff on the inside. And this is how to put it back together again. Some people like Sky Safari, and so here's another YouTube video, and that one is how to connect literally C-Star with Sky Safari and have the Sky Safari kind of control where it's going to go. So ultimately, C-Stars I think are fun. I think they're darn cheap. They're less than a really good eyepiece, and I think they give really decent kind of results. And so at this point, I will say, does anybody have any questions? Anything you need answered before we go on?
Certainly do.
Yes, sir.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. You talked about projecting the image onto the 36-inch TV screen that's in the observatory.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. And you're saying that the resolution, like for the moon, is not so great?
Well, I mean, by resolution,
I mean, look at my
it's-
picture.
it's-
My picture, my background picture is a C-Star moon picture. Anyway, well, what I'm thinking is, okay, if you have something with poor resolution and you're making it larger, doesn't that enhance how poor the resolution is?
Well, the resolution on a C-Star is gonna be
Yeah.
1920 by 1080. And so that ought to do a reasonable job on a television screen, okay?
Okay,
Because televisions really don't have super detail. Now,
Yeah, that's 1080, that's 1080p, right? So that's
Yeah.
pretty high resolution.
yeah,
The advantage to blowing it up on a big screen is people can be far away.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah,
That's
if you
exactly
go
that's what I
right
was
up-
going to say. Yeah.
If you go
Yeah.
right up next to it, you're gonna find all kinds of problems, of course, but you can have a
Right.
big group and even the people in the back should be able to get a nice view.
Because when you're looking at your phone, you're looking at it from about a foot away. But in a crowd, you're looking at a TV screen from maybe 10 feet away. So yeah, when you're farther away from the TV screen, the parent image is the same as what it would be in your hand at a foot away.
okay. Well, that's great. That'll work out real well.
Now, if you want Steve's
Steve-
other little sneaky thoughts, this is based on what I had suggested and Stacy had done back during the COVID days. The best place to set this thing up would be on the east side of the observatory, where the TV light wouldn't upset anybody who's out with the telescope and in the real life part of the observing field.
Thank
Okay.
you.
And
Thanks.
you're welcome. If you got really interesting and people really like doing this, it could almost be suggested, hey, go bring a folding chair and set stuff up with folding chairs.
Yeah, yeah. Hey,
Another thought
Steve-
that I thought is that in rather than eat up a full pad, the benches that Clayton built that are no longer there, but they've been replaced by other benches, right? Then that would be a
Day
good place
bench,
to
yeah.
do it too.
Yep.
Hey, Steve, I got a question about, how the resolution looks really remarkable. Do you think it's dithering when it's doing any of the images?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I think dithering would add more expense to the whole setup.
Hey, Bill.
Yep.
I think the dithering is its natural internal vibration and
That's it.
stepping.
You're right.
I don't.
Yeah. It's like I call my telescope the auto dither. Yeah, right.
That's right. There you go. Steve.
Yes, sir.
So I think I caught something that I was like wanting to verify. You said so if I shoot the Ring Nebula and I go to the Whirlpool, then I go down to Orion, and I want to go back to the ring and shoot it again. You're saying I have to kind of cycle the power on that to do that?
No. All I mean is the very first time you do something in a night, by first something, the first time you turn it on, the
All right.
first object you select to do, you've got to, it's gonna take longer to get set up. Okay. And it's gonna do a number of plate solves to find out where it is, and then it's gonna do the master dark kind of stuff.
Okay,
But once
okay.
that's set up and that's stored in the C-Star itself, then the rest of it is really quick. All the other targets you do in a night.
Okay, so I could like command it to shoot, to stack the ring, get my 30-40 second image, and then do it a second time and third time, maybe do like 10 30-second shots of the Ring Nebula and then stack those later on.
I no. What you're gonna do is that it's gonna be 10-second exposures. You're gonna be on the Ring Nebula, and you're gonna just be on the Ring Nebula for 10 minutes. Or 5 minutes is the case.
I'm
may
gonna
be.
say this is alt azimuth, so this is gonna be kind of limited before you start getting into blurring, depending
No,
upon.
it won't. No, because the exposures are so short.
Oh, well, I thought when you were talking at the very beginning, when you're talking about this is alt azimuth. And
Yeah.
so when you're trying to stack images over time, you're going to get that field rotation.
You're going to get field rotation, but the only place field rotation is really going to show up is a problem. It's going to be on the edges of the image and the corners.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
that's because if your first picture's like this and the second picture's like this,
Well, right. I
we're
get that.
missing a little bit now.
That's
We
right.
just
I get
lost
that.
a little bit in the corners.
I get that. Okay. And then you say it does have a 3/8 adapter, tripod adapter.
It does not come with one, but you go to Amazon
So-
and I think you can buy them in packs of 10 for $5.
Yeah, I mean what I meant to say is so you could get a good tripod, even though it's like 1 1/4 inches. Some of them have 1 1/4 inches and a 3/8. But you're right. So I could use my tripod with 1 1/4 inches to 3/8
and then put the C-Star on that.
Yeah, but you
Cool.
need, you
Okay.
need to be able to go from 1/4 to 3/8.
3/8, right, and you're right, you get those things at Amazon 10 for $1 almost. Thanks.
Okay. Anybody else see stories?
And the only thing I think it really misses would be putting the celestial coordinates as a hash mark on the on either side of the rectangle of the photograph. And I think it could easily do that programming wise. I don't see why that would be terribly difficult for a programmer that knows his way around, especially.
Well, and you know,
That's knowing the RA and the deck and the time things taken, it could obviously put something on there.
you know, in
That's just a feature I think I think it would really improve it. But that's just it's still you know,
But
that's
you
just me talking about.
I think you'd have to do that post. I don't think you can modify the software in
Well,
or the
and
driver.
I will tell you that the answer to that for the quick jump in is to use a piece of third-party equipment like Sky Safari. And
Yeah.
the deal is in Sky Safari, you put it in equatorial mode and or actually not even do that in Sky Safari, just set up your field of view for the same kind of field of view, find your object and make sure in Sky Safari, you got turned on label north, south, east, west, and you're going to be able to see.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I was just saying that if it could do something native to the app, it would be a whole lot nicer. Because if you look at things like the sun, knowing west on the sun without having to go to a different app.
Oh, yeah,
you
but
know,
see, the sun is going to be weird because it moves independent too. Well, it doesn't, we do. And so the best way to find out directions on the sun is to use tilting sun. And with tilting sun, you just tell it what kind of amount you have and what the date and time is and hit the button and it'll tell you where everything is. Oh, and tilt and also there's another cheating way for SunSpotter. And that's go to like any kind of sunspot program, like the NASA sunspot thing. And on
Oh yeah,
it,
they
and
have
that
pictures.
show its picture and dark is up on it.
Yeah, that's right.
Sorry, that I've cheated that way.
Are you going to try that out in equatorial mode eventually?
What, me?
Yeah.
No. Well, not for any time soon.
Okay.
Okay. And the reason why I say not for any time soon is that I'm happy with what it does.
Yeah.
I don't want to.
You don't want to get advanced on us.
Yeah. So anyway, now we're going to go back to this.
Yeah.
Good news for everybody is that serial does not take nearly as long. What slide is serial? 54. 54. You show.
Serial.
Oh,
54 out of 60.
see, it's not as many. That's by title. Let's go.
Oh,
There we go.
see.
So there's Cyril. Okay. And I got to move everybody out of the way. So there's an example, and that's what the serial screen looks like, and so on. Ultimately, you kind of got to decide how good you want your C-Star pictures to be and what you want to use them for. They're never going to be as good as the pictures that Dan takes. Never. Now, you might be lucky and be the only person in the world who captures the one golden picture just at the right time, but it's not going to be all super, super perfect, okay? And so ultimately, you need to decide how good you want it to be. In terms of that, when your C-Star is running the app, do you just want to capture the stuff? Or do you then want to go into it once it's capturing it, go over and enhance the saturation and the contrast and the brightness, okay? Or do you want to be able to pull it off and you want to run it through some kind of program? And so if you're the kind of person who wants to run it through some kind of program, you might ask yourself what the program is. And truthfully, if you're not the big time astro imager, you probably don't know about PixInsight. PixInsight right now seemingly is the program of choice, and it runs somewhere in the neighborhood of $275, okay? There's a program out there that is called Serial, and Serial is free. Is Serial as powerful as PixInsight? No, but Serial is free, and free is an important word for me. Okay?
Does it run on Linux?
A good thing. Pardon? Runs
Does it
on
run on
Windows,
Linux?
runs on Mac, runs
Your
on-
pictures over the I can't see. It says Windows, Mac.
Oh, and
I can't
Linux.
see underneath the picture.
Okay, you see Linux there?
No, I can't see the end of the sentence because your picture's over that
Did I
part of the
screw this
screen.
up again?
No, you haven't. No, I just the way I've got my thing set up.
Okay.
I see you talking, you know,
Okay,
that's fine.
I'm sorry. Anyway, Serial is free. Okay, it uses FITS files. And for people who want to do more than just C-Star stuff, you can use it to calibrate and stack your frames and post-process and image all that sort of stuff. And you can use it for scientific work, and it's scriptable. And if you know what I mean by StarNet, you can use StarNet to remove the stars. And then you can process the DSO, and then you can use StarNet to put everything back together. You can do all sorts of wonderful things, okay? And here are a whole bunch of links, and they're hot links, and you can look at those hot links if you want to download Serial. There's a YouTube channel, the guy's called Deep Space Astro, and he's got probably 20 great YouTube videos about how to use Serial. My only complaint about the guy is he talks too fast. If you think I talk fast, you ain't seen nothing yet. This guy doubles me in speed. There's a guy who has a really good thing, like I'm going to show you a little bit later here, just a few moments, about how to use it to process images. And with his, he includes how to do drizzle if you want to increase your file size and your resolution just a little bit. And then I've got some places for some serial scripts and that sort of stuff. These are things that you can look at if you're interested in going the serial route. Okay, first, you need to know, if you're not an astro imager, you need to know a little bit about a histogram. And so I kind of have a histogram up here on the screen. When you take an astro image, it's not like taking a daytime image. If you take a daytime image, you got some stuff in your picture that's light, and you got some stuff in your picture that's dark. And there's a kind of an even distribution of light, dark, middle tones in the picture. In an astro image, generally what we're going to see is a whole lot of dark and no light because it's dark outside. And so here in the histogram that you would take, all of your data is stuck way over here, over by the 0. And ultimately, when you try to display it, it's going to give you a picture that looks black. And what you have to do is post-process that stuff, and you got to stretch it out and go over into more into this middle part of the curve. And ultimately, that's what a program like Serial is all about. And that's what we're going to do. With Serial, okay, you got to have a workflow. And so this is the workflow that I use. And I'm going to open an image, and I can either be one of the things that I get directly out of C-Star, one of C-Star stacked images, or I can open the stacks of all the sub-exposures that I have, and I can have Serial stack it for me. And you might ask yourself, well, what's the advantage of one versus the other? Easier when it comes from C-Star, but better when it comes from Serial, because I can look at those individual frames and I can say, oh, well, that one there, he's got uh, an airplane going through it, or he's got a cloud or something like that. And I can take those out. If I stack them in Serial, I don't have to include those frames, whereas a C-Star might. Anyway, the next thing you want to do is you might want to crop it to remove the artifacts you get from field rotation. And then a lot of times around here, if you're taking pictures, you got a gradient. I'm going to remove the gradient. And the colors are all funny, and I'm red green colorblind, so I can't tell the right colors anyway. So I'll use and assume it does it right for me. And a lot of times, even after that, there's some green in the pictures that need to be gotten rid of. And then sometimes I like my colors to jump a little bit more, so I increase the saturation. And then we're going to spend a whole lot of time here in stretching. And then I'm going to remove noise, okay? And then I'm going to sharpen it a little bit, and I'm going to save it, okay? Now, the truth is, Serial has all sorts of stuff under the hood, okay? Lots and lots of commands under the hood. I want to do this fast, and I just want to get it done because I'm not one who likes to spend a lot of time doing this post-processing stuff, okay? So I generally only want to use things that are keyboard shortcuts, and I want to use pull-down menus, okay? And the truth is, the only thing that you won't know when I'm doing it is that sometimes I'll be pressing the control button, the control key on my keyboard, and I'll try to let you know when I'm doing those things. Okay. What Serial can do is it can go from a picture of M13 from this guy right here to that guy right here. And I think everybody would agree the one on the right is a whole lot nicer looking thing. Okay. And I want to show you literally how I do that with Cyril. And then here's an example of taking, I think I'm going to use M101. I think M101 is there. It might be M51. We'll find out. But anyway, I had to go from something like this that comes straight out of the C-star to go to something like that. And that's my plan. I want to show you how to do that. And we're done with that. And I want to go this. Did it start? Yes. Come on. That's not doing that. I may have to start that again. There it goes. And so this is the opening screen when you get Cyril. Okay. Ultimately, there we got that rid of that guy. Couple of things I want to point out as a start. Up here, typical stuff. Here's open. You use this guy that's got a little picture of a house to set the home directory. You gotta go forward, go back, undo, redo kind of thing. There's some things that you do under image processing. We're going to spend a lot of time there. There are some scripts. And the idea of the script is it follows a set of directions. And it's almost kind of like, I can't think of what they're called in Photoshop. We'll forget that. Over here, if you were not going to do something with the C-star, but you were going to use something with your own data, you would use the conversions and the sequences and calibration stuff. A couple of things down on the bottom. Oops, there's why I got something in the way. You'll notice down here it says auto stretch. When we first load this, we're going to be auto stretched. And down here, I'll explain the rest of those things in a second. I want to open a picture. Open. And I want to look for M13. That's the ping. That's the results. M13. This is 88 10-second exposures of M13. And that's what came straight out of a C-star. If you look at it, there's a gradient. If you look at it, there's kind of a funny color. It's already auto stretched. Hey, lunch. Let's not do lunch. If I come down here and I turn off auto, I'm being frustrated here by this. And I go to linear, look what happens to my image. My image goes away. And what I have to do is I have to operate on an image to bring it back so you see everything. So now let's go back from linear. Come on. This is taking more than 5 minutes, but it's my computer doing this. Okay, so we're going back here to auto stretch. So there we go. So following my workflow, what I like to personally do is the first thing I like to do is go into image processing, and I want to take this guy and I want to do a background extraction. And it brings up a menu. Oh, one other thing. I'm sorry. Console. This tells me what's going on. Now, I want to go over here with all the defaults, and I want to hit generate. And when I hit generate, it puts all these little squares over here. And what it's going to do is it's going to sample the picture in terms of all these areas and try to find out what an average background ought to be. Now, the things that can mess this up are things like stars being in those squares. I'm using a wheel here. And so what you need to do is you need to, I'm holding down the control key. You need to scroll around the picture and you need to see, are there any stars that are anywhere in any of those boxes? Oh, let's say this one's a little close. I don't want that one there, so I'm going to right click on it and it went away. And you decide, oh, I want to put another box in right here. If you left click, you can put in another box. You adjust the picture until all of those things look good and you say compute the background. And you can see the stuff over here that went in the console area. And then I got to get rid of this thing. And then I hit apply. Damn. Apply. And look, Remember before it had a gradient? And the gradient's gone. And I can hold down the control key and I can zoom in. And I'm still holding down the control key. And you can see that that evened out everything pretty well. Remember when I said Alt-S caused problems? Can you see the junk down here in this corner?
Yeah.
That's because it's Alt-S, and that's because over the 88 exposures, it turned a little bit and screwed up that corner. Okay.
I see a lot of modeling in that image. A lot of
Yeah, but a lot of that modeling has to do with the size of the resolution from the C-star itself, from the 1080 by whatever.
I got you.
Okay.
Hey
So
Dan,
anyway,
do we
pardon?
have software that resolves that? I mean,
But
We
you
have-
well, with remove noise, it can get rid of a lot of it.
otherwise it's more of a pix and sight kind of process
Yeah.
then.
Or don't enlarge it so much.
Yeah.
Next thing I want to do is I want to make sure the colors are right. So I'm going to go over here to color calibration. Okay, and I'm going to hit that guy. And when I do, I have two different ways of doing it. I can hit that guy and I have to manually do it, or I can hit photometric calibration. I'm going to do that. And it will say, oh, I'm going to do it automatically for me. And ultimately, if it's the fits and the fits headers are right, it knows that this picture is centered around 16 hours and whatever, and 36 degrees and whatever. But if you're not sure, you can type in M13 and say find, and it's now found M13. You then fill in the focal length and the pixel size. It found these in the fits headers, okay? And then it'll find this, and I click OK, and I was afraid that was going to happen. Sometimes it gets pissy. Oh, well. That wasn't supposed to happen, guys. Oh, I know why, maybe. Let's try it again.
It said there weren't enough stars selected.
I don't know if you noticed or not, but I had drawn, I'd drawn a box. Can you see that box over here in the picture?
Yeah.
It was looking in the picture. It was looking in that little bitty box. Okay. My fault. So anyway, it's now color calibrated. It knows the colors are right in that particular picture. So now I'm going to say close. Another thing I want to do with this is I want to remove the green cast. And where does it say green removal? Up towards the top. Remove green noise.
Yeah.
And I don't know if you saw a difference. I can see a difference. Can you see a difference between these two? I'm going forward and back. That's with the green and that's without the green. Okay.
Yeah, touch. Yeah, it looks like it got rid of some of the red.
And then
it's all such a small image on such a small screen on my screen.
I'm going to go color style calibration, color saturation, and I'm going to crank that up. And that's good enough for me. Now the fun part. And I'm going to go off auto stretch.
You have some colorblind issues though, right?
Yeah, that's why I love this. I said, hey, blame Cyril, it's not me. So this is what the histogram is really going to look like. It's going to be a dark picture. I'm now going to image processing, and I'm going to go to histogram transformation. Okay. And in histogram transformation, I'm going to be able to play with the histogram to make it such that instead of having all the data over here, it's all over the kind of screen. Ultimately, I can do that a couple of ways. One is I can zoom in a little bit to give an idea, show you what the curve looks like. Pressing the one gets me back. Or I can just go ahead and cheat. Over here, there's this little guy right here, and that's auto stretch it. And I just auto stretched it. Okay. And so ultimately, after it's auto stretched, I can pick up the gray slider, wherever the gray slider is. Where's the gray slider? There's the gray slider. And I can move that around a little bit. And sometimes it works better if I click on this guy and then hit apply and then start looking for the gray pointer. This is the mid pointer, and I can play with the mid pointer and I can make the picture either brighter or I can make it darker. And if I go over here, you'll notice that I'm still a ways away from the main curve itself, and I can make this guy look a little bit darker. Come on. There we go. And so you can play with these. This is very much like levels in Photoshop, okay?
This
And
is still
so-
Cyril?
Pardon?
This is still Cyril?
This is all Cyril, yeah,
Man.
okay? And that's apply, and then we're gonna get rid of this guy, close. Another way of messing with this is under image processing, if you go to generalized hyperbolic stretch transformations. This is more like curves in Photoshop. And in it, you set a symmetry point, and you set a symmetry point by picking an area of the histogram, arbitrarily this guy, and that's arbitrary. I just clicked on it, and then click that guy all the way up, and then you can stretch. And as you stretch, it makes it do all sorts of strange kinds of things. I'm not going to do that to this particular picture. I'm going to get close. Okay. Ultimately, you play with that for a few moments, and once you get good, you can get better detail in your picture. And I'm not going to spend a lot of time doing it. The last thing I want to do is go to scripts, and in scripts, I have loaded a script from somebody else, and that can sharpen it. And I'm going to sharpen this guy and say, fine. Oh, here, I'm going to turn it up a little bit. And you can see it got a little sharper. Yes?
Yes.
Can you- Okay, and it's what it's doing is running through that script. And you make it look as good as here as you want to make it to look. And when you do, then up here, you can hit save, or you can hit this button, which is the download arrow. And in the download arrow, it says supporting files. Okay, and you pick a PNG or a JPEG or whatever you want. Okay, and then you hit save, and it'll go ahead and it'll save that guy. Yeah, let's replace it. No big deal.
Huh.
Now, to Andy, which way, switch way? See
Yes.
that, the globy kind of thing down here?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so this kind of tells you what's which way. Here's north, up in this corner up in here.
Oh,
and here's
perfect.
east
Yeah,
down in here.
great.
Okay,
Mhm.
and
Yep.
somebody might say, but I'm not sure what that DSO is or whatever, wherever. Come on, go away, leave me alone. And so if I do that, it says this is M13. Also in the picture, I have IC 4617. Okay. So that's a possibility. If for some reason you were really into variable stars and stuff, there's a guy down here you can click on, and when you click on it, it then will come up and it will tell you information about the variable star brightness and that sort of stuff. And it'll say the intensity, the magnitude is relative, and all that kind of stuff. So anyway, that's Cyril.
You know,
And-
unfortunately, Steve, it looked like on one of the last things that you did, and it changed the image, and you said it looked pretty good. To me, it looked like it threw up a bunch more noise.
Oh yeah, it's crappy. I didn't play with it.
Okay, because I know you got a colorblind area. Was it red blue or green?
Oh,
blue?
red green.
Red green. Yeah, I thought, okay, Steve probably isn't seeing that additional red green in there.
No, if there's red green in here, you're right. I don't see that.
Okay.
What else can I think of? Now,
So you know it's Cyril. Sorry.
okay. Now, one thing I do want to show you about. Okay, and I need to close, minimize Cyril. Come on.
Steve, do you know, does Cyril do any kind of masking or anything like that?
As far as I know, it does not.
Okay.
As far Magic Court, as far as I know, it does not.
Hey, Dan, it looks pretty good for free, though.
Yeah, but that's what you're talking about, the increased, when you sharpened it, it sharpened the noise as well as it sharpened
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
without masking. That's pretty much what Photoshop would do and what PixInsight would do too.
So we're probably into a multi-tool process then. Do something with Cyril, then
Oh,
go to
gosh, yes.
Photoshop.
Yeah, if
Well,
you,
the other thing that might have helped is if it ran through like SCNR to get rid of the green noise
Yeah.
or desaturate the background, which you could probably do there. But yeah, that's a masking thing too.
Yeah, these are all advanced. What would be cool is to see how people like you, Bill, and Dan and Fred, what you guys can do with a bunch of images out of the C Star. Give you guys a bunch of images and see what you can do with it. That would be awesome.
there are actually a bunch of Facebook groups or something because I get C-Star images in my feed every once in a while, and there's some
Okay.
really good images out there.
That's what I mean, man. You guys pop some of those C-Star images through PixInsight. Good Lord.
Let me do something for just a second, and then let's go back to talking. One of the things that you can also do is that you can have a script stack all the stuff, okay? In other words, before I had used that for M13, I'd use the C-Star image, but now I want to use the C-Star subs. And so down here, you notice where there is a script, and I'm going to run the script. And this script is going to take maybe 3 or 4 minutes to run, okay? So I just want to hit that. And ultimately, I have made a directory on my hard drive, and the directory, that's not it. The directory is in the C-Star directory, and it's called lights. And in that light directory, I have, I think, 118 M101s. And so this is analyzing them and stacking them and all that sort of stuff. Oh wait, so I just want to let that run for a while. So anyway, yeah, back to C-Star conversation, or back to serial conversation. It's free. Oh, and there's another script. This script is also modified, can be modified to have it include drizzle. And so it will, instead of having 1920 by 1080, it'll be up to close to 4,000 by whatever. Anybody want to say anything?
Yeah, what's going on?
Yeah, we were wondering what you were doing.
With the, you know, essentially, I'm stacking the picture. I'm taking all the fits files from an M101 folder that has 118
Okay.
images, and I'm registering them and I'm stacking them to come up with the stacked image. This is kind of like what a C-Star would do on the inside, okay?
Yeah.
But this is a case where you could go back and dump particular ones that had problems. You would have to look at the individual files that had problems.
Yeah, it was rapt attention. We were waiting with bated breath for your next hurl of
Yeah.
wisdom.
It's now starting stacking.
Cool. Yeah, that's Siri, huh? Man.
I'm done. So in that case, it would be open and
Now Siri needs to work with FITS files, or can it work with TIFF and
no, this has got to be it's got to be FITS files.
okay, frack.
Why? Oh, and the truth is, the truth is, if it doesn't have FITS files, it can make FITS files.
Well, I was wondering if
It just
there I was
doesn't
thinking
take
there's
them.
probably a conversion tool, but you won't have the total data set.
I'm sorry. I'm trying to
Yeah.
get rid of that.
What plot?
No, this bottom banner bar, I got to move it out of the way. I keep moving it so I can do stuff. Okay, but it's a case where it's driving me crazy. Okay, linear. I want to do this for a second, and then I want to go to image processing, and I want to go to generalized whatever, and I want to get this guy out of the, no, not that guy out of the way. I want to get that guy out of the way, and then I want to go over here, and I want to come over here, and I want to zoom in a whole bunch. And I'm going to set the point right here. And then I'm going to turn that guy all the way up. And then we're going to stretch the daylights out of this guy. And there's M101 sort of. And then I'm going to hit apply. And I'm going to stretch it a little bit more.
You sure that's not M33?
M10, nope, M101.
No, I'm just playing with you.
That's okay. You can play.
Because I've never seen M33 very good anywhere.
Yeah, Andy, I thought that was like M51.
I don't think I have M33 yet.
Just anything I can't see, I
Don't
just
have
call it
M33.
M33.
Don't have M33. Sorry.
And a lot of where were you imaging these? Where were you getting the data from, Steve? At ground, about your backyard in Chesterfield, or?
Yeah, my front porch.
Jesus.
Some of them I was sitting on my front porch and I was imaging from my front sidewalk, and others I was sitting from the car. I was sitting in my car on the street, and then I was taking the images with the tripod sitting between, on the grass, on the common strip, the easement
Yeah.
between the street and the sidewalk.
Jesus.
So it's
Jim. Hyperbolic stress.
hey, so you can do that, and I'm going to hit apply. I would like to point out the zoom window is driving me crazy. Anyway, you play around with this. I'm being frustrated tonight doing this in front of people. But anyway, I don't have enough experience doing it. But a bottom line is you can turn out a really good picture doing that.
Yeah, you're good, man. This is
And
Good
so
enough.
having said that,
this is achievable at my level.
come on, come on, come on. That was when I was younger.
Weren't we all? Good Lord. Quit rubbing it in.
So here's some of the things that I've done with the C Star and that.
You know, some up and comer without even a telescope could do the Messier catalog with this thing.
Yep, there you go.
Wonder how far you can get into the Herschel 400.
Well, I would say you're going to need maybe 20 minutes to a half an hour on a lot of those dimmer galaxies, and they are smaller. And so it would be, quite a long time. But I think you could do it.
No, man. Yeah, I did it. With this kind of guy, with this kind of thing
Oh, wow. Is
at
that
Bromlesick Park, I'd say 10, 20 objects a night, easy.
And again, my front yard for
Yeah.
all of these.
I'm telling you,
Is
the exposure
just-
times in Bromlesick Park won't really be all that long for most of the Herschel 400.
so? What's the secret of getting rid of all the getting these objects to shine through the brightness of the sky? Is it all in those filters?
No, well, on these pictures that I just scrolled by, the duo-band filter, the light pollution filter, is not used for galaxies. It was used for pretty much everything else. But what does it is just so many exposures.
Yeah.
It's stacking and then turning up the contrast and removing the background.
Yeah, it's all you can do your imaging in one night, and then it's the post-processing afterwards that gets you the man. I'm like, wow. Yeah, if you know a Messier marathon, you could, I would not be surprised to hear that somebody's already done the Messier marathon with one of these things. Have you heard about that, Steve?
I'm getting ready to type.
Dan?
I haven't, but I don't see why you couldn't.
There you go. Thanks,
Spelled
Steve.
I spelled marathon. There
There
you
it
go.
is. Yeah.
Maybe a Messier 10K.
The Herschel 4000.
Here's your answer.
Oh, Jesus. Okay, I'm gonna make another note on this one. Yeah, that is so cool.
So,
I'm stop sharing.
so see, I got a question about, using this at a darker site than your front yard. Since it's only 50 millimeter aperture, seems like darker skies would be better, perhaps.
Sure.
But is there have you seen anything talked about, comparisons, of, different border level results?
I have not, but I would kind of sneakingly point out and say, have you ever heard of a red cat?
Yeah. Miguel uses it all the damn time with remarkable results.
Would you like to guess the aperture of a red cat?
Well, it's pretty small, relatively.
50 millimeters. Would you like to guess the focal length of a red cat?
No, because I already know what it is.
250 millimeters. Would you like to guess what it is for a sea star? The very
Was the
same.
same. Yeah. So good optics on both.
Well, it's the image processing. Yeah, exactly.
But then there's the camera consideration. But I think it seems like the sea star be even better at a darker location. Like I guess
it would be.
everything. Yeah.
Steve.
I need to say something. Do you remember me showing a picture of Sadart with a really red field around it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was taken at Green Bank. That was
Mhm.
dark.
Pretty dark, right?
So, Steve, sometime in the future, you and I are going to be able to stand out from the crowd of master observers because we actually did it visually, and the rest of them did it photographically. Jeez.
And how many miles did we drive to have to do it?
God, yeah. Well, I had an advantage. I was using the Jones Bird down at Romsick Park, but still. Thanks, man.
Hey,
Good
Steve, can you
presentation.
comment about the difference between Searle and GIMP?
I have never used GIMP. Okay.
GIMP is
And
GIMP
I've
is
only
paint
used
shop.
Serial as you've seen it. And the truth is my bigger comment would be GIMP is a generalized program. In other
Right.
words, it's all for graphics, all areas of graphics. Okay.
It's like
And-
paint shop, Photoshop. Yeah.
And Serial is more of it's designed specifically for astronomical kinds of purposes.
Yeah,
And so
exactly.
I would think it might have a little bit better job in terms of doing things
Okay, great.
for the things that an imager would want to do. And it is as good as is it as good as PixInsight? No, but it's free.
Right. Yeah, that's the big selling point. Yeah. Hey, Don.
Yeah.
Serial is the kind of thing that you did imaging 5 years ago and you processed it with the stacking tools and all the stuff. Serial is the kind of thing that you go back to your old data and get better results with it. That's the way it looks like to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, it has some of the newer style tools in it that PixInsight has really pushed. So it's a step up from like a deep sky stacker or something like that.
One thing that it can do that I don't do, that apparently the really, really good guys do, is that they do run it through a piece of software that extracts the stars from the DSO. Okay. And at that point, you look at the DSO image and you can just work on it and do anything you want to do. And then later on, you can go ahead and work with the stars and make them whatever you want them to look like. And then you can combine those back again to get a picture. And so there are some DSOs that are located places in space whereby if you just try to do it all in one, the stars overshadow the DSO. Okay. And so by doing it in two separate things and then putting them back together, you can mute the stars and make it look better.
Okay.
Yeah, this is just getting easier and better as time goes on.
You know, and the truth is, it's like when you talk to people in the community, say, "Oh, I'm an amateur astronomer," and I think we all do the same things. And all do different things. What I want to do is different than what Dan wants to do and what Grant wants to do and what Don wants to do. And so it's like we all have to find our own ways to accomplish what we always think is important. And kind of, I guess, wrapping everything up, it's like I think I probably started doing EAA before. I know I started doing EAA before it was called EAA. I used to just call it video astronomy. And I know I've been doing it for at least 12 years. And it was like, okay, well, I'm going to use my Samsung SDC 435, and I would get 640 by 480 pictures that were clunky looking and that sort of stuff. And it's like, oh, well, this is good. This is good. And then wait a year and there's something better and there's something better.
You know,
I-
we were back in the late '90s, we were using webcams, hooking them up to telescopes and getting Yeah, we were getting, you know, at the time we were like getting results that made Palomar look kind of like, you know. And Dan, I think you were at the tail end when you started. You were at the tail end of the webcam trend. You started with CCD cameras, right?
I just a digital Canon camera.
Yeah. Okay. Oh yeah. That's right. Because CCD imagers were still pretty expensive. So yeah, you know, I mean, yeah.
So my story about the Sea Star is I don't have one, but I'm hopefully selling them to or getting a bunch of other people to buy them. I was donating blood at the American Red Cross a few weeks back and got talking about astronomy. I forget how. The woman drawing my blood, you know, was ecstatic that it cost $450, $500 because for her child who's, you know, becoming a teenager and getting interested in this. And she was tickled pink that for the same money she'd spend on a video game console or less, you know, she could get this great instrument, you know, and I hope she went and got one. But I predict there'll be you know, a lot of those kind of sales because the barrier to entry is now so relatively low.
Well, I remember when like Celestron and me were selling the DS2000, the Go-To telescopes, you know, with a little 4-inch you know, with the 4-inch OTA. That was, you know, that was really fun. That was a good novelty. You know, you could do a quick setup and do a Go-To and see M51 or M52 visually. So the Sea Star is just a natural progression of that.
Hey, Steve, do you know if there are any sites that sell this that have volume discounts?
It's
Where
from-
if groups like maybe ASEM and others would order 10, 20, 40 of them?
I honestly don't know. I would think that the two places that you could ask is one would be like a Gina Astro and see if they do anything, because I know they sell them.
Yeah.
And then another would be, and I don't know if this is going to work, Astronomics, I think sells them. At least I know they sell some accessories for them. And Astronomics does have a 5% discount for anybody who's a cloudy night person.
You know, that's a good progression from the library telescopes. You know, the libraries could start carrying a Sea Star for those folks that have gone through the visual loaner scope program. That's not a thought.
Actually, it might be even more effective. Only visual is something you get into later.
Well, visual gives you an introduction to the night sky and how it moves and what you can see. And then you translate that, you take that to the Sea Star, because the Sea Star it does require a phone, installation of software, you know, some, you know, ability to go through menus and things like that. And it would be because part of the reason why I say kind of maybe in advance is because of the theft you wouldn't want to be, I don't know. I'd be thinking that would be the next step up from the visual. You do the visual with the loaner scope, and then you progress to the C-Star. I don't know. Amy, thoughts?
Yeah, I'm cogitating while you're talking. In the short term, when we go out to libraries to do training of patrons on how to use the Star Blasts, we could bring along a C-Star and show them, if you want to take pictures, this is the easiest way to do it.
Yeah, they always ask. Yeah.
Yeah, I just worry about the durability because I don't know why I'm upside down. Anyway,
That was another reason why I was thinking that would be a progression up, because like Steve says, you don't want to push anything. You don't want to force anything. You want to follow the directions with it.
yeah, I don't know. People are sort of clumsy and crazy. You with
Yeah.
there are thousands of patrons of the library, and you don't know which ones are actually going to be respectful. Also,
Exactly.
it's on them to charge it because it does eat batteries, especially if you have the dew shield, the
Sure.
dew heater turned on.
And that's why I was kind of thinking that would be the next step up from the Star Blast, because if they, they get the Star Blast, which is pretty rugged, and they get a feel for that, and if they decide they want to kind of pursue this, then that would be why the C-Star would be like the next step up option.
Well,
One problem.
they can join ASEM, and for $50
There you go.
they can
Thank you.
try
Sorry
it
about
before.
that. My mistake. There you go. Thank you, Amy.
And
Yes.
I was gonna say, and one truth, and I'll point a finger at Chuck. How many times has Chuck had to fix a library telescope? And
Yeah,
C-Stars
yeah.
are sealed units, you can't get in them,
Right.
and none of us are gonna be able to fix them.
Well, it's not so much that I've had to do that with SLAS and ASEM. Yeah, you're right. A lot of the maintenance and repair is stuff on the exterior, like the finder scopes. Somebody is able to kind
Well,
of.
no, they have to be recollimated because people will see these screws on the
Right.
back and they'll play with it. What does it?
Exactly.
What does this do? What does that do? So
Exactly.
yeah, and the focuser, sometimes people grab the focuser and real hard too.
That's
And
right.
yeah,
And so it's kind of up to the library. If the librarians recognize that this individual has brought back a pristine scope, sure, C-Star.
Well, a
But
lot
this
of that
next-
is that I think folks need to realize that telescopes are not toys for children. They're not made by Fisher Price.
That's right. And
And
that's my point, Andy. So the librarian
Yeah.
sees another customer come in and they're like, oh, this is the guy that got jelly bread all over the damn eyepiece. We're kind of lenient about loaning out the C-Star there, but
well, they can't keep track of that. They'd have
I
to
know.
have it on their hard drive,
That's why I
at their
kind of
computer
trailed off.
sometime.
Yeah.
Also,
and Grant,
and it's
you know-
not just kids. I've had the worst problem with a 35-year-old man.
Yeah, exactly. I know.
Grant, I know that visual has some frustrations associated sometimes. I think that maybe C-Star can get past, especially for people who are more inclined to want to move things around with their finger on a screen than doing something mechanical or relying on their eyes or having the patience to know what to expect when they look through these things. I mean, I sometimes think that in these 4-inch telescopes, people are expecting to see like Mount Palomar images and stuff, and you just don't see that.
Right.
And I think a lot of folks get frustrated.
Well, they get frustrated with finding
Yes.
because they
It's
can
difficult.
find the moon and
No,
that's
they
about
get
it.
frustrated with not finding.
Yes, correct.
The finding process. Yeah, that's kind of a test program I guess we'd run with one C-Star and see how it fares. Is it too fragile? Is it easy to do? I don't know. Yeah, it's
I would point out that my 1972 Celestron, orange tube Celestron C8 still runs.
yeah, mine too. Yeah.
And I would bet that my C-Star will not be running in 20 years.
Well, how often do you get a new laptop?
There is
2 years longer than I should.
See, there is that, Steve. So the only thing that's changed well, actually, the only thing that your C8 has needed is a 60 hertz, 120 volt electrical power. Now, how many electronic things do we have in our basement that are in the basement because it's no longer compatible with the current technology? I got a bunch of Wi-Fi routers that are worthless. So yeah, how compatible will the Bluetooth Wi-Fi of your C-Star today be compatible with Wi-Fi Bluetooth 5 years from now?
Yeah.
And that's
Your routers can't be any more worthless than my Surface 2 with Windows RT 8.1 that's been bricked by secure boot.
precisely, Andy. They're perfectly good if it weren't for the damn change in protocols.
Software. Yep.
Yeah. Kind of slow by today's standards, but still. So yeah, but as far as wear and tear, Steve, I think yours would be just fine. If you can lock down a system with the Wi-Fi and the Bluetooth, it'd be good as long as that's compatible with whatever device you're using.
It'll be interesting to see what the ASEM ones look like after 6 months or a year.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. Yeah.
Yes.
You know, if you look at some of our, I've seen the Lunt telescope several times. I mean, stuff gets dropped even by astronomers.
So have you guys, Steve, have you guys seen anything in the social networks about rugged ability? People that treat theirs with kid gloves still say they're seeing broken things, or people that go like, nah, I just tossed mine in the car and I haven't broken anything yet.
I am on the C-Star Facebook page, and only in terms of reading stuff. And I have yet to see an article on there about anybody breaking anything.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it's like they really have only really been around for 9 months, 10 months.
Yeah. Well, I just remember my Meade DS2000s, one of their first go-tos, right? At one time, I had one in transit to their service shop and one coming from the service shop. And I had 3 of them. So I was using one while 2 were broke and coming back from repair. But yeah, that was with those nylon gears that they had.
I think C-Stars have metal gears. I think.
That would probably be the weak link.
Totally off the subject and different subject. To David Wood, I love the lighting in your room.
Yeah.
It's great.
You're I don't know how to say this. This is going to sound so gay of me, and I apologize for putting it that way. But your image looks just so great.
What?
Beating it.
What are you
I don't know how
talking
to
about?
describe it.
What are you talking?
It's just a head floating in space, man.
You know, I mean, it's just the lighting on this room. It almost looks like portraiture lighting.
Yeah.
I'm just really impressed.
No, well, there is no nothing going on here. I just have a overhead fluorescent lamp and
Right. Yeah.
TV screen kind of lighting up my face in a weird, kind of frightening way
It's-
to me.
I think it's Rembrandt lighting.
It's
Because
this floating
Yeah, a little loop.
floating head. I used to turn a lamp on and behind me, but then I have this glowing light coming out of my head, so I stopped that. But as long as the floating head doesn't disturb you, then
Well, so here's the thing about that. Okay, so I was thinking all he needs is a little herky jerky motion and a backdrop that says max headroom.
oh my. Well, we can all work on our backdrops.
On my screen, it's got Fred right below him, and it looks like the Emperor Genghis Khan or something.
Oh yeah. Yeah, that old wise teacher with the long flowing beard and all of the who are the brothers that did all those Chinese I can't remember those names. They're getting there. Yeah, for the while Hong Kong was producing these kung fu movies, and they always had that old man with the white beard, and he was the one that could stop a bullet with a finger. Just Shaw Brothers. Yeah, the Shaw Brothers. Those are so good.
Well, thanks, Steve.
Yeah, that was good.
This was great.
Thank you
We'll
much.
post the presentation so they can use the links somewhere soon. I can post it in the news group, or you can just give a link to your Dropbox or whatever you want to do. Um,
Whatever you want to do is fine with me.
Bill wanted to talk about his Los Mandy mount.
Yeah, thanks, Steve. That was fantastic. I learned a
Mhm.
lot. It's got me very excited. These meetings are becoming more and more expensive for me.
Yeah, but this is only $100 four times.
Yeah.
Well, and the image processing software is free, so I'll try to focus on that. My topic is much less interesting and brief. So I'll do it, but I understand if people want to drop off because they're not interested so much in Los Monde mounts, that's
Are you
fine.
saying it's much less brief?
It's very brief and much
Ah.
less interesting.
Okay.
Share my screen. I think this is going to work.
Yep, we've got your screen.
Okay.
And it even says Zoom on it.
Here we go. Okay, so I want to talk about this level 6 upgrade. So first of all, I think, again, I think there's only 2 of us in this group that use the Los Monde mounts. And that, correct me if I'm wrong, but I know Greg has one and I have one. I don't know of anyone else in the group that does, but nevertheless, the comment that was made about so few of us have them anymore and they're not even really actively promoted made me really curious about what what the market kind of looks like. And I don't have a lot of data specific to Los Monde, but I'm going to go off on a slight tangent here and talk a little bit more about the market. So I found some market research that says the astronomical telescope market, which includes not just the mount, but the rest of the gear, is valued at $250 million. So it's not trivial. And it's growing rapidly at 6.63%. And this market research report indicated a number of favorable reasons why our hobby is growing. So it's a real turnaround from, say, 10 years ago. And it lists some key players, of many of which you'll recognize, and then a bunch of them in China that are making equipment for names that we do recognize. The other thing I thought was interesting is they broke out telescopes by market share, and I guess not surprising, well, a little surprising was that refractive telescopes are the market leader by a significant percentage. Probably a lot of that is at the low end scopes, but I don't think so, because those are low dollars and these are dollar value share. So anyway, refractive telescopes are certainly very popular.
And that could be for imaging purposes.
It didn't go break down that specifically. And then if we look at equatorial mounts, they continue to be also growing. It's a growing hobby and a much smaller market, 56 million. So that's quite interesting. And then you see the leading companies. And I found this a little interesting because certainly you recognize names here, right? Celestron, Ioptron, Los Monde, and so Omega, Vixen. But then some of these that I don't recognize, Track the Stars, Rainbow, I'm sure Cynthia, I'm sure they're making the mounts.
This is in order. This is in order from largest to smallest.
It didn't say,
Oh, okay.
but typically that's the way they're ranked.
I think that Rainbow is, isn't that United Kingdom?
Oh, I don't know.
I think they're Chinese or Japanese or Korean, something like that, but they make high-end mounts.
Okay.
Rainbow Astro.
Yes.
Okay.
And the same thing with Avalon and Fornax makes high-end mounts.
Vixen was mounts, and I guess they've got into scopes too. Huh. No me.
And anyway, if you want to have some fun, you can go to this new AI tool called Perplexity and type in questions, and it'll find market research for you on different topics. And some reports are quite interesting and a great way to waste a day.
Ah,
So let's talk about Los Mandy, a little background for those that don't know. So Los Mandy evolved from a camera platform company. They're in Burbank, California, so Hollywood. In fact, that was the name of the company, Hollywood General Machining and Company Incorporated, still there. And they made custom mounts and tracks for if you want to do moving footage of like a movie of someone walking down the street, and it would go on these precise tracks without the cameras vibrating, or you can get very smooth camera motion. Was the specialty by Scott Losmandy. In 1989, he got interested in astronomy, and he got really frustrated with the mounts that he had at the time, and decided he can make a much better one. I would say the thing about the Losmandy mounts is they're mechanically distinctive. There's a lot of great mounts out there. There's no question about it. What makes these a little different is they're machined. They're not cast. And his reasoning there is that you can machine, by machining away metal, you get it's a stronger, lighter weight method. It's more expensive because you got to take away all that metal, but it's stronger than the equivalent cast weight. And he also is notorious for using high-end bearings, sometimes multiple bearings on an axis to try to get as smooth and low force required to move the parts. They're also distinctive in that they have readily available replacement parts. You can find everything on their website, from set screws, motors, cables, circuit boards. They're not trying to lock out an ecosystem. You can buy anything you want. You can make your own mount from all the parts if you felt like it. And I think they pioneered the dovetail system. I could be wrong about that. I don't see that on their site, but I think they were the first to come up with the wide format dovetail.
what we call the Vixen mount, or
No, the
think-
Los Mandy, the L series.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, which is not compatible with a Vixen mount.
No, the Vixen is a narrower format. They used to be sold through Celestron, particularly with the C8 and the C11. That's why, like the Los Mandy G8 was to go along with the C8. And so it was the German Equatorial 8 to go along with the Celestron 8, and same with the C11. So the G11 was meant to handle the weight of the C11. And then in 1999, Celestron decided to make their own mounts. They cut off Los Mandy, and he then just started selling them directly and advertising them that way. So they're privately held, and this private equity report done in Bradstreet shows them as having $1 million in revenue. I think that's really wrong. I think it's more than that with the two companies. But with private companies, it's very difficult for DNB to find out. So getting to the point then, I have a G11 with the Gemini 2. It's a 33-pound head weight. I have it on a cement pier, which is down at the bottom of the picture, and it's on a permanent pier in my Rubbermaid observer shed. And it can hold 60 pounds of gear. I have the version that has what's called the one-piece spring-loaded worm block, and I don't know what that means exactly, and I don't know why it's important, but the net effect of what it does is it means there's no east heavy requirement. It's spring-loaded, so it takes out the backlash through the spring, and it works best when you're perfectly balanced. So when I do a meridian flip, I get good guiding either side. I don't need to be east heavy.
And you know why you get that is because of that one-piece spring-loaded worm block assembly.
Yeah. Whatever design that really means is what gives it that. I just don't know what that is. And I have the Gemini 2 go-to system, so it's a bit unique. You can see mine's right here, sort of facing the camera, and then there's a hand controller that's separate. So here's a photo of the control computer. It's a bit unique in that you only need the control box. It'll run the mount and everything. The hand controller is a client. So it's a separate microcontroller, and it's just using serial commands to go back and forth. But you can disconnect it or reconnect it. It's just a client. It's like connecting a PC.
And it uses a touch screen.
And it uses a touch screen. Or you can control it over the Ethernet, or you can control it by USB. So any of those modes work, or serial. So what's different, what they did with the level 6 upgrade is they introduced this high resolution tracking mode. It's 4 times improved resolution. So it's now 0.14 arc seconds per step. And the reason they did this, or the reason they were able to do it with no hardware update, is they found out that the chipset that they were using had a high precision mode. It just wasn't implemented when they originally designed the Gemini 2. And so they did a bunch of testing and found that they reprogrammed that controller, that indeed the high resolution mode would work with the rest of the hardware. And then they adjusted the rest of the software to take advantage of that, and had no ill effects on the rest of the electronics. So it's not as simple as just upgrading the software. There's an EEPROM that needs to be reprogrammed, and they sell a kit, and you can do this by yourself. I sent mine in and had it programmed. So they updated all of the software, the hand controller software, the control computer software, as well as reprogram the ROM. But it gives you this high precision. Okay, well, great, who cares? Well, it turns out to have some interesting benefits. One of which might be obvious, and that is when you're doing auto guiding, each step now can be a smaller step. So it's not, you'll see in a minute some of my traces where much less overshoot.
Yeah.
But also the lunar and solar tracking, I haven't tried this yet, but they say it's significantly enhanced, because now they can have a more precise lunar rate, a more precise solar rate. And so they've also added in then this tracking that lets you track satellites, comets, near Earth objects, and so on, asteroids. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to mention. I know people in this group do this, where you're tracking satellites or near Earth objects, asteroids, and so on. And with this upgrade, the system appears to be particularly good for this application with this finer control mode and the software features they've added in. So they've integrated in some JPL Horizons. The JPL Horizons, if you go to their website, is the most accurate position information for any object in the solar system. Like if you're going to go launch a space probe to Juno, JPL Horizons is telling you where it is, its distance and position most accurately. So that's somewhat interesting for those of you, again, that do that. I haven't tried that yet, so it's something I'll experiment with. They also improved some of the remote operation. They optimized the Meridian flip. They've improved some of the internet features so that it works well with a travel router. And also now you can control 2 mounts with the same driver. So one computer can control 2 different Gemini systems, and certain other incremental updates that are kind of less interesting to me, since I don't tend to do those things. Here's the experience I had with auto guiding. So the upper trace was a few months before I did the update, same hardware and same configuration and same version of PhD, but with their prior firmware, which is 5.21, you can see that trace. This is plus minus 3 arc seconds, and my RMS was 1.15 arc seconds. One below is my first run after the upgrade, and as you can see, and by the way, these are at least 2 hours long. I think the upper trace is about 2.5 hours, lower trace about 2.2 hours. So here I have 0.73. And from the forums and so on, my findings are the same as others. You get about a 40% improvement in this auto guiding, because the correction steps can be finer. You can see in this upper plot more overshoot, bigger steps per correction pulse, and on the lower one you're able to have smaller steps per correction pulse, and so less oscillation. But there's some other benefits I ran into. One is the image centering is about twice as fast as it used to be. So that saves me time when I'm doing the grabbing a frame, doing a plate solve, and moving it. I could take, it wasn't uncommon to be 3, sometimes 4 iterations. Now I repeatably grab a frame, it knows where it is, it does one move, and then confirms its position, and I'm ready to go. So it just speeds things up a bit. So the go-to being more accurate, my first reaction was, who cares? Well, the reason I care is it's faster. And then again, this promise of better tracking of moving objects is something I haven't played with. Would like to at some time. I know there's others again in this group that do. Out to see what Greg's experience is, but this is a new capability that it brings to this hobby, or to this hardware anyway, this mount. This is my junky shed with all my junk in it, but just again, another shot of the mount with my my pier. I think that's it. I just wanted to explain this this level 6 upgrade that they've introduced, and that my experience with it is, again, great auto guiding, better go-to, which means I have faster centering with plate solve, and this tracking, improved tracking of moving objects is a new feature set in this mount. I don't know what share or anything else, but I did notice there's 1,400 people in their user group. So I don't know if that's a lot or a little.
Are you seeing any improved image performance, or is it pretty much just in positioning and tracking?
Well, it seems like the most important thing, isn't it? And to be honest with you, I've been futzing around with improving my camera and getting the field flatter and getting rid of some vignetting. So I haven't taken a lot of images yet.
Okay.
But that's a really good point. I need to compare images to images.
That was an ill-formed question. Sorry.
That's a great question. It's like, that's nice, Bill. You get good results.
Well, you mentioned a couple of points on some initial positioning, and and it's something I have to think about. It takes me a long time to think about those things. So you get into things like PEC, the error correction, the periodic error.
Yeah, I convinced myself that it isn't the improved accuracy so much, it's the improved resolution. So any small correction step sizes can be much smaller. So it's
okay, yeah. So that should go into better periodic error correction then.
I think it would. I didn't think about that, but I think you're right. It would there as well. I haven't seen a lot in the forums about it, because when they first released the software, there was a problem where there's a third-party application that's really common to program the PEC. This has permanent PEC, and it wasn't compatible. It made it incompatible with that software. That's now resolved. So people are now using this high resolution mode for their PEC. So we'll see how that works out for them. But I remember once it frustrated the daylights out of me after when I first got the mount and I was working on it. It would do plate solve, it would move to the position, plate solve, move back, plate solve, and it was oscillating. It was just overshooting enough that it was just going back and forth and back and forth. And this would certainly eliminate the potential for that type of situation.
Because so the other question would be, and Dan might be able to, both of you can take a, would it improve the dithering process? Would it be, would it improve or would it? I'm not sure
It
because you
would. I
got
don't know
higher
that it would be
resolution per
meaningful.
step. And so would you want finer dithering steps or do you want coarser dithering steps?
Yeah, that's a good question. I use a pretty, I think in PhD, I think it's called medium dither. I don't remember, but I find that if I use too small a dither, when I go in and process images, it's not rejecting enough pixels. So I use a pretty big dither,
Okay.
but I don't know how this would change that. That's a good question. I'll have to experiment with it.
Hey, you just change the number of steps required for your dithering.
Yeah.
It's like you're getting like 2x increase in positioning resolution. So
Well, my dither, well, I don't know. I have to look up on that because I think my dither is based on the auto guider pixels, not the computer, or
position.
not the telescope step size. But I could be wrong about that. Maybe it does certain number of pulses.
Yeah. Yeah, because you know it's steps per arc or arc seconds per step, and you never know how the software is working if it's doing micro stepping, which it kind of really sounds like what Los Mandy discovered was that they can actually do some fine resolution micro stepping with this thing.
Grant, I think you're dead right. I think that's exactly what they found is they could, what is that called? Micro step or half stepping or quarter
Half
stepping?
stepping, yeah, micro stepping, 16
Yeah.
steps per,
Yeah, I think that's exactly what they found is that they
and
could.
and
That
that
was their goal.
directly affects their sensor and stepping algorithms. So you know, if you cut your stepping ability down to if you take 2 steps per degree and you increase your stepping resolution to 4 steps per degree, then when you want to change 1 degree, you got to put in 4 steps instead of 2.
Yeah,
And
and
if they're
it's
table
almost
driven,
as if they have a gear, the main gear magically had 4 times as many teeth.
thank you. Yes, yes, you double the size of your gear just by changing your micro stepping performance.
Yeah,
So, and that's kind of what I was thinking in the background. And then but then that leads to dithering. And if you guys need smaller steps for dithering, then this would improve
there
the
you go.
process.
That would help. You're right.
But then
That's
you
right.
just told me that you need larger steps in image. You need larger dithering steps, which you were saying by going to medium.
But if I get better auto guiding, maybe I could have smaller dither steps and
Oh,
still
there you
be
go.
just as
Yeah.
well. Yeah.
Yeah, it sounds just, man, that sounds pretty good. Not that I'll ever have a chance to use something like that, but
Well, I think the dithering, I think, is based on moving something, moving the field or whatever. So I would think it would still
Yeah.
move at the same amount. It might,
yeah, that's what Bill kind of intimated was that you need a bigger shift in the field. But if you're dithering based on number of steps, you'd have to change that so that if you've got twice as many steps per degree, then you're going to have to increase your dithering distance also.
yeah, I'm assuming you had to recalibrate your guider.
Ah,
Yeah, I did.
there you go.
And it's funny because, yeah, I think I can even see in the calibration report that comes out, you can see that there's different counts per arc second.
And you're getting much better guiding, aren't you?
Yes. And the guiding, I mean, people told me, oh, gosh, this will give me better guiding, but there's so many things that can affect guiding. I thought I wouldn't see it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
But I
it's
did.
going to be
It was
hard to
dramatic.
tell around here because it looked like your guiding was 1 point something pixels, and I don't know what that translated to arc seconds or whatever, but as long as the guiding is lower than the seeing around here, which yeah, I'm sure it is, it's going to be hard to tell if it makes a difference or not without you actually looking at images.
Yeah.
Right. And I'm sorry if I said pixels, but in my situation, a pixel is about an arc second. So, let me.
So
share
your
this.
your worst guiding before was 1.6 or 1.4, 1 point something, and the seeing in Missouri is never 3 arc seconds or less. So
That's right.
You can nano step that son of a bitch and ain't gonna get any better in Missouri.
Yeah, good point. So, let's see, I was 1.15 is on the upper trace and 0.73 on the lower trace.
Yeah. But the atmospheric shift just erases that.
Yeah, right.
It'll be interesting to see because there's more involved than
I
that.
know, I
At
know.
the end of the day, you're within 1.1 arc, 1.15 arc seconds before, and that's 3 times the seeing on an excellent night here. And but
Yeah, I think
you're gonna get there
what-
quicker and a lot of less downtime.
So what are you using down in New Mexico, Dan?
What do you mean?
What's your mount down in New Mexico?
Oh, I have a software-based Paramount, which is a higher end mount to Los Mandy type level mount.
So we won't be hearing a report from you in the future upgrading to a Los Mandy.
Los Mandy's an old school mount. I was the guy that made the comment. There's just not a lot of them around. The Paramount actually has a new update available too that swaps out a board. It's just really expensive, and it's not the kind of thing that most people would do unless their current board dies.
Gotcha. Okay.
And there's no, there's none of the internal cable routing and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, it's really for my mount the reason for upgrading is because you can't get the old board. So when the old control board fries in your mount, the only thing you can do is buy the new board and the upgrade. But
That's a good thing. I mean, your mechanics, yeah, your electronics might die.
yeah,
You want something you can put in there because your mechanics are still fine.
yeah. On my particular mount, the board is kind of the weak link, and they based all of their stuff over the years off a certain kind of board that's just not made anymore. So they're getting a lot of grief about it. But much like the Los Mandy, you can still they still support mounts they made 20 years ago. You might have to buy a new board and a new control system. The mounts still have parts available and things like that. It's not something that I think you're going to see with the newer Chinese mounts. And the C stars and stuff. I don't think the C stars are going to last years because in 2 years they're going to be on the 3rd version of the C star.
Yeah.
And so they're more throwaway. They're cheap too, so you can buy 2 or 3 of them and throw away the old ones.
Yeah. And if you get a protocol change in Bluetooth or Wi-Fi, that requires some embedded programming, and they'll probably just say, "Nah, buy a new one. It's better."
Yeah, I mean, there's even ZWO as quick as I don't think that's going to be an issue because I notice even ZWO's new cameras don't even support current Wi-Fi standards. They're still running on Wi-Fi 5 and the older stuff. So I don't think that'd be the issue, but being that you'd have to send it into ZWO to get fixed, I think I'd be shocked if they don't come out with a version a year because they do it with everything else.
Yeah, man. Yeah, my cameras are so obsolete now, but they do what I need them to do.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys noticed that ZWO came out with they released or they mentioned that they're releasing their new camera with
Swiss Army knife
built in and everything built in. I don't know if it's a good idea or not, but
I missed that. The camera came with what? Everything built in.
yeah, they've got
ASI Air.
new one that's got it's got the ASI Air built in, which is the control system, and it has an off-axis guider built in with a second camera built in. It's all a one package deal, so you don't have a bunch of camera cables and things like that. It just plug in the power and plug everything else into the mount. But ZWO stuff, if you go with this ZWO setup, it more or less requires everything to be ZWO.
What's the buy-in?
I don't know. I
2,000,
How
yeah,
much?
2,000.
Oh,
It's
man.
the exact same price as the Duo, but it's got that, I guess it's like an ASI Air Mini in it.
Wow.
I mean, doesn't sound like a bad deal, but you'd definitely be stuck. And then I heard they don't work that well with just regular drivers if you wanted to use them on a mini PC or something like that.
Windows 11 compatible?
Well, I mean, I guess it would be if you use their ASCOM drivers, but I don't think it works real well in that way, which you normally wouldn't if that's what you wanted to buy, was something with all the bells and whistles. But boy, I'd hate to see just one component on that break and then boom, you're out of luck.
$2,000. Jeez.
yeah.
Yeah.
The pricing on their stuff is really good. I mean, it sounds like a lot of money, but for what you're getting,
Oh yeah, right,
It's a lot,
right.
yeah.
You know, you're right. Yeah, to do all that stuff individually, yeah, it's more than $2,000 for sure.
But
Yeah.
But I
I,
only
you
get
know,
four.
I don't know that you're out of luck if something breaks. I mean, I was thinking about, you know, with that integrated auto guider, if that the integrated auto guider goes out, so just buy an external auto guider. It's still
Yeah,
would be
you could still do that.
Unless if their software allows that.
But
I'm
what
just-
I
yeah,
heard was they didn't play well with ASCOM drivers with this as opposed to the regular Duo.
Okay.
That's what I
see.
heard on. You wanted that,
Aha,
the
well, then that's a problem.
internet guys, yeah.
So the only reason I'm kind of looking at $2,000 is I'm retired on $1,400 a month Social Security. I'd have to be pretty damn dedicated to this vocation to plunk down that kind of cash.
yeah, this is ZWO. The 2600 is ZWO's one of their higher level cameras. That one, and then they've got one that's got a larger chip. That's their top of their line right now. So pricing wise, it's really not that out there. But I like ZWO, and they're pushing they're really good for the imaging market because they've really pushed the prices down and they make a lot of really good hardware.
Oh.
My only qualms with ZWO is they've taken the software that's free, developed by people. I haven't
Open source, yeah,
Mhm,
they
yeah.
locked it down.
5 years ago, and
Yeah.
they've taken it and more or less just stolen it and given the open software people more or less a finger, and there's not much
Yeah.
to do unless someone decides to sue them, and no one's most of the people in that realm of software development, they're not getting paid for building that software other than they're doing it during
Yeah.
their pay job time.
They're sitting back there doing Lily Tomlins on the phone network. We're the phone network. We don't care. We don't have to.
Yeah, it frustrates me that they've purposely taken the software and then they've yanked features out of it so that it only works with their hardware.
Right. They
And
appled
that's
it up.
the annoying part of it. They've taken away the software they based it on and they're using has features to work with other cameras, but ZWO has taken away that option, more or less just ripped it out, and so it only works with their stuff.
So let me ask you this about that. So for years, it seemed like ZWO was coming out with a new chipset and a new camera that was far better than the one they had last year. Has that trend kind of flatlined such that they got to figure out how to sell more? Now they're going to take the same camera that from last year and systematize it?
I would argue and say it's not ZWO that's driving it, it's Sony.
It's Sony, yeah. Sony
Yeah,
and
they make all the
Panasonic.
sensors.
So Sony and Panasonic, they've kind of flatlined their
Well,
performance
you know, Grant, I find it kind of interesting. For me personally, you can keep driving that pixel size down, but it's of no benefit. Once you get below 3 microns, 2.9 microns, it's no benefit. It's a
Thank you.
pseudo
Right.
resolution. In fact, it becomes a detriment. And then quantum efficiency, good heavens, they're at 60, averaging 60%. Sometimes they're getting up to 75% at some wavelengths. It's just super, super hard to get much better than that. So I think they're reaching the limits of what is possible with an imaging sensor.
Unless they come in with some revolutionary discovery, you're saying they've kind of pushed the limit of this technology.
Yeah, I
Yeah,
think
it's getting close. I mean, there's still improvement. I mean, I think we would all love to see a sensor that had a more flat
Yeah.
sensitivity profile that didn't roll off in the blue and red and so on. And you know, but these dark currents are low. I think there's still maybe some improvement on the bias side of it, but I think it's kind of asymptotic, you know,
Right. Yeah.
it's hard to the continuing to make improvements is harder and harder on the chip side.
It's kind of like the audio guys. They're looking for a flat curve from DC
Yeah.
to light. You know.
But you know, I think the good news of them coming out with that integrated camera is for old fuddy-duddies like me, where their standard camera is super cheap. Yeah, you can get a 2600 now for $1,500. You know,
Right.
that's good.
Yeah, ZWO, I think there was a big push with new cameras because the chips weren't very good, but now they've gotten really good chips. And
Right.
and ZWO, the 2600 and the next one up, you know, those are kind of the top of the line chips for ZWO now, and there's nothing else out there that's much better than those for the ZWO market. QHY has better chips but they're much more expensive and they're not the same kind of market that ZWO has. But
The other thing I think ZWO has kind of learned with their earlier models is it's important to have a great chip, but the electronics that are supporting the chip are super important. They have to be low noise and reliable, and that was a problem early on, if I remember. And then the other is how you mount the cooler to the chip. Having that uniform cooling that's reliable over wide temperature ranges and can take thermal cycling on and off again, that's not easy. And now that they've seemed to have, not seem to have, they have gotten that right. Yeah, I'd be surprised if they
And
come
that's an
out.
evolutionary path that
Yeah.
no matter if it's imaging or
Yes.
cars or whatever, and you get to a point where you're, you know, with diminishing returns need.
Yeah.
So one thing about the ZWO cameras that's kind of surprised me is I've bought a couple of them is I moved to the 533 with bigger sensor from the planetary type cameras that were uncooled because I wanted it cooled and a little bigger. But in fact, for a lot of my purposes, like EAA, for example, I kind of want the smaller sensor. The effect of the smaller sensor with the same 500 millimeter lenses is a bigger galaxy in the short term, quickly right in your frame of view, as opposed to smaller, and then you got to do the digital zoom, and it's not quite as satisfying. So, there's a space for those smaller sensors as well. And if the smaller sensors I had less amp glow, they'd be even better if they were lower noise. But they're not terribly low noise compared to the newer sensors.
They're great for lunar imaging for just those reasons. Yeah.
Yeah. It's nice to effectively, you reduce the arc seconds per pixel and you get a little bit nicer view, without much processing.
Or you could use a C-star.
Well, that's kind of where I
but-
started this whole thing, earlier, which is, for Joe Blow off the street, C-star is great, but I don't think I'd see Dan migrating to a C-star for his astrophotography results anytime soon.
I think the C-star is just a different market. I mean,
Yeah, absolutely.
I could see myself with a C-star sitting, taking pictures and showing stuff to people as I'm doing other things with bigger setup.
Like Steve said, he was using some of his cameras for electronically assisted astronomy. And what he could put together with some of his semi-retired cameras would put the C-Star results to shame. So you probably wouldn't want to use some of our good cameras and systems at an outreach when somebody else is trying to show off their C-Star, because people would be going like, that C-Star sucks. How did you do this?
No, actually, I think you'd be surprised that you're not going to see that much difference in outreach, because where it makes the difference with the really, really good cameras is in the post-processing.
Right. Well, but I think that the real-time stacking results would certainly look a hell of a lot better than the C-Star results.
I would propose to you, what program do you propose to use as part of outreach to stack something from a good camera? to
Well,
capture?
you do it with Fire. You do it with what was the other one? Alternative Firestar, not Firestar, but I can't remember the name of it. Sorry.
Star cap?
Fire Cap. And you like to use the other one.
Yeah, Sharp cap. But
Sharp
it's
Cap.
that would mean you'd have to pour those frames into a watch folder and have it do that way. And
But
you-
these are old
it's
programs.
It's not, I honestly don't think it's going to get you that much of improvement using a good camera.
Because
Or EAA.
I thought real-time stacking software was compatible with our cameras, was available, and had surpassed FireCap and the older ones. But maybe that's not a, like I said, I thought they had gotten those significant, I thought they'd improved them since then. So.
Yeah, I think our big cameras would be similar to what the C-Star makes, like on the fly, so to speak. And there's just so many differences that you can't really compare them. But
I'm kind of interested in your comment, Dan, about QH. I can never remember those.
QHY,
QHY. They make better cameras than ZWO.
but yeah, they have much higher end. They sell the same kind of cameras that ZWO does. You can buy the same versions, just with different names, but they also have much higher end cameras.
They use the higher quality chips right off the manufacturer.
Yeah, I mean they do have much higher end stuff, but I mean you can be talking tens of thousands of dollars or more. And
so they were always doing that, and the stuff that I'm familiar with is just kind of like, I hadn't heard of them at the high end like that.
yeah,
I haven't looked into this for a couple of years.
I'm sure the market's not near as big, but the people have deep pockets.
And they've been doing that for more than the last couple of years then.
Yeah, they've been around a long time.
Gotcha.
I don't know. I think the holy grail, the next chip would be something similar to the 2600s and the larger chip, only with bigger pixels.
Yeah,
That's the thing that's lacking right now. All the new chips have these small pixels,
small pixels.
and they're just they're not really good for big telescopes. You have to cut the resolution down and all kinds of things like that to make them work. And so once hopefully at some point they'll come out with a chip that has bigger pixels, and that will be like a holy grail that all the bigger telescopes will buy.
What about us? Is that monochrome, or are you talking one-shot colors?
Either or, it doesn't matter, but the typical ZWO camera that we're talking about here, those would be terrible on, say, the C14, without cutting the resolution down and stuff like that, where you want much bigger pixels. And so that's the reason why a lot of the guys with the bigger, larger telescopes are still holding on to their inefficient CCD cameras.
Yeah, that's really
the
true.
wooden-
I think that gets missed. I mean, one of the things to think about too is it's really all about F number in terms of pixel size. So I think some of the you could have a 200-inch diameter telescope that's f 3.65, and the blur size on the chip will be 5 microns. My telescope is an 8-inch telescope. It's f 3.65, and its image blur size is 5 microns. The difference is the field of view is very different between the two. The true resolution is different between the two because you're going to get a much bigger image from the larger telescope because it has obviously a much longer focal length. But if I used to always image at f5. Well, there's some cameras that have like a pixel size of like f2.9. It's just way oversampled, and I think you end up with more noise rather than less. I kind of like my current setup. I'm at f3.65 and I have a camera with a 5.4 pixel. It's kind of matches up pretty nicely.
Yeah, you're still using the 8300 chip KF.
I am, I'm anxious to try the 2600. Let's see, I'm trying to remember. I think it's a 3.76 micron. That should work out okay. But
Maybe you can
that's
borrow
probably a
Dan's.
small. What's that?
You can borrow Dan's.
Yeah. I got to justify the one I already have.
Oh, but then you need all that 1990s software to go along with it, right?
Yeah.
Have you shot with that yet, Dan?
No,
Yeah.
Not even once yet, huh? Wow.
Dan's got
Be
an
like a
update
kid
on
at Christmas if I had that.
8300 for his grandchildren to process, and so
Yeah.
one of these nights I'll get out with it and I'll shoot with it and say, oh my gosh, I was wasting a lot of time with my old technology.
I think you'll like it if you do. Because that 2600, that sensor in there, that 571, that's a good sensor.
Fred, are you monochrome or color?
Both. I did mainly monochrome now though. Yeah,
So you're filter switching then.
the biggest one I've got is that 284, and it's a 4/3 sensor, so it's got like 4.63 micron pixels. So
It's good.
yeah, so you'd probably like that. It's got a little bit bigger pixels in it. But yeah, it does a good job. But somebody else was talking about the amp glow and all that, and it's a monster with that. But
It's got a lot. It's got a lot of amp glow.
a lot, yeah. But it calibrates right out, so.
Well, guys,
It was a late one.
10:30, man.
Just because I have a big mouth.
That was a good one.
Learned a lot, Steve and Bill.
Yes, thanks, Steve.
Yeah.
Talk to you later.
okay, guys, I appreciate you coming tonight.
Did you stop recording already?